Part 318. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3185. Latest website, every genius will have some secrets. This secret is either an inheritance or a powerful method. But in the genius battlefield, others will not covet your secrets too much, and you don't need to think of yourself as too great. Jia Yan was in a huge room, listening to the black monster in front of him. This monster looks like a huge insect with 100 or 200 legs. It foams at the mouth when it talks. I don't know if it is born or for some reason. In short, it is very disgusting. Okay, I see. Jia Yan nodded. Although he didn't think that his inheritance and secrets would definitely not be coveted by others, but after hearing what this insect monster said, he had some confidence. The other party is right. Geniuses in the genius battlefield will all have some special physiques or inheritances, otherwise they would not be geniuses. And after everyone is unique, then it is not considered unique. Perhaps only an extremely powerful inheritance can arouse the prying eyes of others. Even though Jia Yan thought that some of the things he owned were too outrageous, after hearing these words, he felt a little relieved. The Edisha was docked at the port of the artificial star, and after they inspected it, they asked Jia Yan to close the hatch and promise not to enter. It's best if you understand. So let's see now what effect you have on our Wu-Ci forces. We are not a charity base here, and we will not hire people who cannot be used. The insect monster looked at Jia Yan. Although he was also a venerable person, he vaguely felt that he had a higher status than Jia Yan and acted like a senior. I wonder what kind of proof is needed, Jia Yanshan asked after a strange light flashed in his eyes. There's nothing else. In the genius battlefield, what everyone sees is combat prowess, so just show your own strength. Follow me to the starry sky battlefield, as long as you can persist in front of the 3-year venerable 3 minutes and you pass the test. Under the leadership of the insect monster, Jia Yan moved forward with it. As he walked, Jia Yan observed the artificial star. He felt a little emotional in his heart. This artificial star is actually made of pieces of metal. With a diameter of 500 kilometers, the technological strength and resources required for this were beyond his imagination. However, such a place was only the location of a small force in the genius battlefield, and they lived in trepidation every day. It can be seen that the overall strength in the genius battlefield is much stronger than that of places like the northern starfield. A star with a diameter of 500 kilometers is divided into many layers. It is correct to say that it is a star, but it should actually be a movable circular flying tool. There are not many living beings in the entire star. There are more than 200 venerables, 7 sub-level experts, and 1 half-star level expert. Jia Yan keenly felt that another difference in this genius battlefield is that there are many more strong people in the second level than in the northern star field. Originally, the number of strong people in the second level was not necessarily greater than that of the half-star level. But what is happening now is that there are actually many more strong people in the second level. He couldn't help but think of it. When he learned about the sub-level powerhouse, the senior light and shadow monster said that in some star fields, advanced combat promotion systems have been developed. Most of the powerhouses are promoted first between the venerable and the star level. Reaching the sub-level will increase the chance of being promoted to the star level. In this planet, my current strength is about the same as that of a strong person in the second level. Jia Yan silently positioned his own strength. The two walked together, and occasionally saw a staff member of the venerable along the way, who was maintaining the equipment on the star. Is this monster the new guy who just arrived today? Take a look. After all, the venerable level is still strong, and they work very freely. After seeing Jia Yan's arrival, they all followed him, wanting to see what kind of performance Jia Yan, the newcomer, was like. All the way to a huge vacuum exit, the bug monster stood still. Which of you has been in the genius battlefield for 3 years, he turned around and asked. I. A turtle-like monster stood up. He looked at Jia Yan with a twinkling look in his eyes. You must know that someone who has been in the genius battlefield for 3 years is not considered a strong person. He is basically underestimated in this area. Now that he meets a newcomer, he also wants to enjoy it. I feel powerful. To put it simply, it's food abuse. Okay, you happen to be a newcomer 3 years ago. Go ahead. You two have a fight. As long as you don't kill the other party, you can use any means. If you have the ability, you can just let your battleship self-destruct and die with him then. The bug monster said something to both parties. Come on newcomer, let me see your strength. The turtle monster flew towards the outside world head-on. Jia Yan didn't say anything, but flew behind. Adisha, if I use strength that exceeds that of most of the sages here, will there be any trouble? Jia Yan asked Edisha in the bottom of his heart. He was now strong enough, and even a half-star level would not notice such a close communication method. Master, no, according to my analysis, this Wu Ci force is barely surviving in the genius battlefield. The stronger you are, the more benefits the force will get. Of course, don't expose all your strength. Otherwise it will cause discomfort to other forces. I see. Jia Yanfu's eyes flashed and he replied. The two flew almost 1,000 kilometers, and then got into a fighting posture. Jia Yan could feel that most of the powerful people on the entire planet were watching this battle. Boy, your ability to come to our Wu Ci force must have something to do with it, but I want you to see that the genius battlefield is not as beautiful as a newcomer imagines. Come and join me. The turtle monster dodged suddenly and came to Jia Yan. Although he looks like a turtle, his speed is as fast as lightning. So fast. Jia Yan's eyes flashed, and then his expression calmed down. It is indeed a battlefield for geniuses. None of the geniuses here are vegetarians. If it were a venerable person from the northern star region, he might not be able to take even one of the opponent's moves. But Jia Yan is Jia Yan after all. After a few thoughts flashed through his mind, he faintly moved towards the body beside him. His movement range was obviously not large, but he actually dodged the blow just right. Awesome. But this is just my test move, defeat me. The turtle monster seemed a little embarrassed, and then his head retracted into the turtle shell, and then he shot out suddenly. The speed of this head is extremely fast, and the general must not be able to follow it. But Jia Yan still smiled, then tilted his head and dodged the blow. How is that possible? The turtle monster was shocked. His eyes turned away, and a cold light broke through the space and came to the front of his head in a flash of lightning. By the time he reacted, the cold light had landed firmly in front of his head. It turns out that this is the opponent's front foot. The turtle monster's eyes widened in disbelief, and then he felt a fierce cold air that spread from the front of his head to his whole body. He was almost paralyzed by fear in an instant. Admitted it? Jia Yan said lightly. Huh? This Jia Yan can actually win. 1,000 kilometers away, a powerful man above the name of the Venerable looked at the scene in shock. What they couldn't believe was that Jia Yan, a newcomer who had just arrived in the genius battlefield, could actually defeat a genius who had been in the genius battlefield for 3 years. You must know that everyone is a genius, even if they are all venerable, but with 3 more years, the gap should be extremely huge. This Jia Yan's strength is definitely not simple. The venerables couldn't understand the scene that happened before. They just felt that Jia Yan was stronger than the turtle monster. But the expressions of all the powerful people on the planet changed. Come up yourself. The insect monster was about to announce Jia Yan's victory. He was also happy to see a newcomer. As one of the strong ones among the astral lords, he was happy to see the arrival of a genius who could expand this power. Among the weak forces, it is not that there is no friction with each other, but there is more pressure to survive. He naturally hopes to see Wu Si become powerful. He was startled when he heard the brainwave power voice of a strong person in the next level. Okay, he was a little strange, but he still obeyed the order and flew out of the star hatch. Look, that Pseudo-Shi has done it by himself. How is that possible? He must have gone over to check whether the newcomer was taking shelter. After all, a newcomer defeated a 3-year-old man just after he arrived. No one believed him even if he said he was not taking shelter. When the venerables saw the insect monster flying out, they suddenly started talking in surprise. But what shocked them was that when the insect monster came to the two powerful warriors, he actually said, "Jia Yan, you won this battle just now, but next you have to fight with me field. As long as I fight you, I can pass the test, right?" Jia Yan looked at him and then asked silently. "Yes, if you beat me, it's not just as simple as passing the test." "But I don't think you can beat me," the bug monster said with some pride. "That's not necessarily the case." Jia Yan shook his head and then assumed a fighting stance. The turtle monster on the other side stepped aside and looked at the two strangely. How could Pai Pushi do it on his own? His strength is at the top level of a venerable. It is not difficult to be promoted to a second-level master. How could he actually deal with a new venerable who has just arrived in the genius battlefield? Or character? There are also strong and weak points among the venerables. Although there is no clear distinction between the early stage and the late stage, there is a huge gap between the weak and the strong ones. The insect monster is an existence that has almost reached the highest level of the venerable. No one thought that Jia Yan could fight this insect monster. "Come on, I'll let you attack first," the insect monster said magnanimously to Jia Yan. He didn't think that Jia Yan could fight against him. Maybe he was just a few powerful men who wanted to see his limits. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3186. Jiqiao was also silent. His power and Chuxing's power are neighboring powers, very close to each other. If something went wrong with the Chuxing force, the probability of something going wrong with his skilled force was not small. "Jia Yan, you really know how to make an abacus. I'm afraid you might have expected this when you said you would take us out for free this time." Jia Yan smiled calmly and did not comment. Of course it's intentional. Otherwise, after being brought out by him, these two people would become unwilling to enter the other world because they had successfully harvested the harvest. Then his plan to invite two powerful foreign aides would be in vain. "Why did you two say this?" The two sneered, but did not want to say any more. But Jia Yan clearly knew that there was nothing they could do. He was firmly tied to the pirate ship by Jia Yan. When they came out of the outside world, they witnessed Jia Yan pushing the train onto the specialized technological equipment in the trade area, and then pulling it while the staff behind it took over. The entire process has been automated and scaled. I couldn't help but marvel. If you two are still free, why don't you go to my office and have a chat? I think so too. After Jia Yan revealed what they were most worried about, the two finally no longer had the attitude of just standing by and watching the show. The appearance of the three people immediately caused many experts who were already in the trade zone base to fall into silence. The three of them did not hide their aura. It's just Jia Yan, he is the supreme leader of this area. But those two? Are these two seniors? Actually, they are also lower level powers. But why did they come out of the trade route? I don't understand. Don't talk nonsense, I'll just wait and see. We should be happy to have two more low-level experts. That's right, two lower-level experts. Jia Yan deliberately took two people of the same rank and slipped out twice with his momentum. Only then did he return to the dark side of the office. What the three of them talked about internally was of great concern to outsiders. Unfortunately, no matter how fanciful they were, they could never imagine the level of communication between the three big bosses. Actually, it's nothing. It's really like a bitch scolding people and trying to get some benefits. The originally agreed upon share and so on were overturned and renegotiated, and the argument was so intense that they almost didn't take action. But in the end, he returned to his happy state, and Jia Yan watched the two of them leave. Your Excellency Jia Yan, who are these two seniors? The goddess came to Jia Yan's office with some worry. She is different from others. She is more worried that Jia Yan has provoked two enemies for no reason. There will be no need to play in the trade area, and it will definitely be miserable. These two can be regarded as our allies for the time being, but the relationship is not absolute. You only need to know that in the future, when vital interests are not involved, just let them give in. I see, that's good. The goddess gently exhaled. As long as they were not enemies, she would accept it, not to mention that it seemed that the two of them might be strong reinforcements in the future. She didn't know much about the strength of the lower level powers. Anyway, there are two others, but Jia Yan is the only junior in the trade area. In terms of numbers, there are definitely fewer people in the trade area. They can't afford conflicts but become allies, which naturally makes it easier for her. By the way, Sir Jia Yan, several of your family members have come here recently. I have secretly arranged for them to live in an area not far from my spiritual realm. You see. That's why I came back. Let me rest for a few days. Okay. Jia Yan stood up and left the office area. As he approached the so-called hiding place, he smiled involuntarily. Yes, this time he asked most of the family members to rush here. He really doesn't have time to go back to Earth. So in the name of fun, I asked my wife and sister to wait, and also used the array transformation method to provide help, and invited them here. The goddess is still extremely generous, or in other words, she dare not be generous. He directly pulled out a planet and let the Geo family live there. All the angels and lower gods on the entire planet serve the Geo family. It can be said that here, they enjoy true treatment like gods. It's just that as time passed, everyone in the Geo family began to miss all the things on Earth again. Especially the unfamiliar environment, unfamiliar plants, and few friends can inevitably make people feel a little impatient. Fortunately, just when Jia Lin was about to propose going back, Jia Yan came. Boom! A giant mosquito figure broke through the sky and fell from the sky. The huge figure covered the sky and blocked most of the entire sky. The Geo family rested in a palace on a mountain peak surrounded by white clouds. At this time, the mountain peaks were shrouded in the shadow of giant mosquitoes. Brother! Jia Lin's breath was suffocated and she screamed involuntarily. His wife Satsuma Kono next to him suddenly became gentle. Niece Jiaruo, youngest daughter Jia Makiao and others were both a little shocked and a little excited. For Jia Yan, the older one can still sort out the relationship, but the younger one is confused. Jia Yan lowered his head and looked at the tiny human figure that to him now looked very much like the people on Earth in the other world, and couldn't help but laugh in his heart. It's easier to talk like this. I saw a figure protruding from the surface of his body. It was Jia Yan, the Earthling's clone. It's just that this clone, Jia Yan, is no longer his earthly clone. But at least his appearance is familiar to everyone, and his size is acceptable. Dad! Uncle chirp! The children rushed forward in a hurry. Jia Yan greeted them with a smile, and saw that among the children here, there were more children, several of whom he had never seen before. Call uncle. Jiaruo held the little kid in his arms and asked him to call him uncle. The little child shrank back into its mother's arms shyly. In a blink of an eye you have children. Jia Yan stroked the child's head and gently released his power, making the child feel happy both physically and mentally, and he immediately started laughing happily again. Well, I wanted to find you before I got married, but I couldn't find you. The child's father didn't come. He was busy, so I didn't let him come over. Jia Yan nodded. He knew that the Geo family had probably guessed what Jia Yan had asked them to come to do, and a new relative whom he had never met before might offend Jia Yan, so he did not let him come. Not only that one, but also the killer brother-in-law whom Jia Yan met very early after his rebirth, was not present at this gathering. Jia Yan knew what they were worried about, but he didn't speak. To be honest, this is what he hopes. Maybe it was just the words of his brother-in-law, which he could barely accept, but if the nephew and son-in-law, the granddaughter's son-in-law, were added to the mix, I'm afraid even he wouldn't be able to accept it. Because genetic modification requires not only his personal energy and strength, but also the mobilization of a large amount of resources and equipment. Okay, let's not mention anything else for now. It's rare that Her Majesty the Goddess has prepared such a good vacation planet for us. Let's enjoy the joy of vacation first. Jia Yan smiled and asked his wife, daughter, sister, and niece to continue their previous vacation together. This planet is not much smaller than the Earth. Although there are many holiday things prepared for the Geo family, in fact it is a holiday resort and there are many local life forms. If they really want to go, there are quite a few local customs for them to play with. Under Jia Yan's order, the angels did not follow them. They played on the planet for several days like ordinary tourists, and Jia Yan used his ability to let the whole family unknowingly. He was pulled into the subspace and appeared in the next vacation spot like a flash, eliminating the fatigue and complicated chores in the middle. In this way, the whole boring travel process takes on a new look and becomes a lot more fun. Jia Yan has never traveled with his family like this. It was only after 3 full days that even the little kids were tired of playing that Jia Yan stopped going on vacation with them. Okay, now it's time to get down to business. Brother, just tell me, are you ready to let us try the body-enhancing techniques like Xiao Rong and Xiao 11s? Jia Lin is quite outspoken. In other words, she has always been like this towards her brother. Even though she now clearly knows that there are not only differences between the two races of life, but also fundamental differences in the level of life, she still likes to use her original words. Treat Jia Yan with attitude. Probably this is one of the important reasons why Jia Yan values the Geo family so much. Well, that's right, what? Jia Lin bit her lip and suddenly said, forget it, I will die of old age together with my old man, so you don't need to exert any more effort. Jia Yan's face became serious. Xiao Lin, if you have any dissatisfaction with me, just say it directly. Your unwillingness will not be tolerated in this matter. No. No dissatisfaction. Jia Lin looked away. Jia Yan sighed and said, let's do this. You quickly send interstellar information back to Earth and ask your husband to come. I will help him improve his physical body. In this way, you will have at least 1,000 years to enjoy the full moon. That's okay, do you agree? Jia Lin nodded, but looked at her 2 daughters and younger grandchildren behind her, shook her head again, and her expression darkened. Let's forget it, the children will feel it's unfair. Jia Yan glanced around. Sure enough, the niece Jia Qi, who was the best friend with Jia Yan at the time, and the little niece Jia Ruo, as well as their respective children, all looked at him with awe-inspiring eyes. No way. After the family has developed to this stage, it will indeed be in such a situation. Jia Yan had long expected such a scene. And the Jia family had already known that it would be difficult for him, so this time they came directly to have blood relations. Maybe in the next generation, even if a new bloodline is born, there may not be such a gathering, because after several generations, at least the relatives on my sister's side should not appear again. It was originally a good deal, but things came to a head, but because of his sister Jia Lin's temporary change of mind, it became difficult for Jia Yan. Let's do this. You guys all ask your partners to come. Actually, there aren't many people. Thank you, Uncle. I knew Uncle was the best. Thank you, Uncle. After finishing dealing with the blood relatives on his sister's side, Jia Yan looked back at his wife Satsuma Zen. His wife was like this, cold-tempered, not talkative, but more passionate than anyone else in her heart. Honey, what about you? Isn't there anyone in your family who wants to live longer? My family, no need, really no need. Satsuma shook his head. In fact, almost all of her family members are genetically modified biological creatures, and their lifespans are much better than those on Earth. Because Satsuma Kobe himself was too radical and perfect to the extreme at the time, he became a product with an extremely short lifespan. Even if it is shorter, it still has a lifespan of 300 to 400 years, which is still longer than that of people on Earth. Dad, I have a classmate who is very good. Can you help her? Jia Makiao's voice appeared next to Jia Yan. She has grown up, 9 years old, knows many things, and has many classmates. Jia Yan patted his daughter's little head and smiled. It depends on whether your classmate works hard enough. If she works hard enough, she may also get the benefits of this technology in the future. Right now, it's not possible. Okay. Jia Makiao nodded obediently. She has grown up and knows a lot. Then let's do it. Regardless of waiting for them, you guys will come first. Jia Yan quickly smiled and asked these relatives to start adjusting the array genes. At the same time, Jia Rong and Jia 11, who were originally working in the nearby Starry Sky running errands for Jia Yan on the trade channel business, also came after hearing the news. Those who transported them were none other than Edissa and Leda, who were driving the palace and rampaging through the subspace. After several months of practice, father and son Jia Rong and Jia 11, under the unreserved teaching of Leda Edisha, had roughly mastered the basics of the formation. Dad, Mom, Aunt. Hello, grandparents, aunts, Aunt Zioki, Aunt Zairuo. Jia Rong and Jia 11 showed up and first greeted the whole family. Then among this group of people, the powerful ones could not help but feel the power of the two of them. Hey, what strength do you two have now? Jia Qi's expression quickly changed as she was one of the more powerful Jia family members besides Jia Yansamoten. Her talent cannot be said to be excellent, but in the Jia family, she has achieved a high status through military service, so her strength cannot be inferior. He has a strength close to the level of a venerable. But with such strength, M can't understand the current strength level of Jia Rong and Jia 11. You know it wasn't like this before. Although as owners of Jia Yan's bloodline, they have reached the level of venerables, and Jia Rong is in the middle to late stage of venerables, but she has also reached the stage close to the level of venerables through various methods, feeling them the level of strength can still be achieved. However, today is different. Could this be what my uncle called the body adjustment effect? How long has it been? Hey, Aunt Zioki, you are so surprised. Where are you? Jia 11 used his array power to show off, and a blue halo suddenly appeared. He rode towards a hill in the distance, and saw that the top of the hill was neatly broken into two pieces. It caused turmoil like landslides and tsunamis. You see, these genetic adjustments are by no means as simple as extending our lifespan. Auntie, let Grandpa adjust it quickly. Our Jia family wants the whole family to become stronger. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3187. The whole process was smooth. In other words, it went so smoothly that even Jia Yan was a little surprised. Not only did he become more proficient and stronger, but his assistants, Edisha and Leda, also made great progress in their formation research. Okay, little one, please obey your mother's words from now on. Ada. The little one was carried back to Jiaruo's arms without crying or fussing. He was the last one to have his genes adjusted, and nothing went wrong. Good job, Leda, Adisha. Don't dare, this is what we should do. Leda and Adisha joined hands again this time. They were already familiar with this task. The three of them worked together seamlessly and overcame all the major problems, so they were able to find a way to deal with the youngest child's delicate body. What exactly is the power of the formation? Ha ha ha, good brother, you don't need to ask any more questions. In short, our sect master's cultivation method may soon change the pattern of the entire galaxy. It's a shameless talk. Several disciples from the Yin-Yang sect have been in the trading area for a long time and have become mingled with the local people. It's not right to say that they are locals. Except for those from the Great Spirit Realm, everyone else is a new visitor. Hu Chui from all over the world. Among them, the Yin-Yang sect disciples from the Central Star territory deservedly became the central figures. Who told them that they were not only lower-level powerful disciples, but also from the Central Star territory. In terms of status alone, when every disciple comes out, even the Domain Lord level powerhouses do not dare to look down upon them. The personalities of the disciples are also very different. There are a few who like to brag and are regarded as the biggest sources of information. There are several people who have ulterior motives. After deliberately getting along with each other, they quickly formed irreversible relationships with these disciples. And today, they were asking about the array gene talent. There is no other reason. A few days ago, there was indeed a team of external forces who wanted to measure the capabilities of the trade zone. They called the formation a disciple battle. As a result, all the disciples were helpless against these outsiders. Jia Yan was no longer in this world, and Leda Edisha went to greet Jia Yan's family again. The unsupervised Yin-Yang sect disciples took action on their own initiative. The power of Yin and Yang Dao is already impressive. And when the disciples used the formation power based on the power of Yin and Yang Dao, it was simply shocking. Several disciples were personally selected by Jia Yan. They were not his direct disciples in the Yin-Yang sect, but disciples who possessed the formation talent gene. All of them are those whose genetic perfection reaches over 60% in the conversion formation. And their actions caused a sensation in the entire audience. Because it's not just the same level. Each of them can surpass one level to fight the enemy. Not a small level, but a large level. The venerable level competes with the half-star level, and the half-star level directly fights the star level. When you reach the star level, the difference in strength is even greater. You shouldn't have to go beyond the next level, but the Yin-Yang sect has allowed the strong men in this area to see what a miracle is. A star-level disciple of the Yin-Yang sect actually ended up in a draw with a primary-level warrior from the galaxy. In the end, he used the power of the formation to obliterate the opponent's strength and won the final victory. This can no longer be explained by talent. No matter how strong the disciples of the major sects in the galaxy's central star region are, can everyone be as strong as this? Moreover, they all mentioned that they were not the most talented among the sects because the master did not let his direct disciples come over at all. Although this matter is suspected of being pretentious, because only one of the direct disciples participated in the array gene talent, if it really comes to it, the yin and yang talent alone may not have the same effect. But people in this area don't know the details. There were strong men on the spot who couldn't help but ask. And the disciples didn't seem to have any intention of hiding it. Since then, Yin-Yang Dao and form power have become hotly searched terms on the internet by young masters in this area all day long. But apart from more and more rumors, no one can know more about the inside story. And the husbands and dogs who gathered around the disciple started questioning him even more closely. The formation path we have cultivated, don't blame my brother for attacking you. Even if you are capable, I'm afraid you won't be able to learn it in your lifetime. For the power of this formation, first of all, one must be a cultivator of Yin and Yang Dao. Secondly, and the most difficult point, it requires the formation gene, and this formation gene is definitely not something that ordinary people can master, and it is not even possible for ordinary people to master it. In 8, it requires the personal intervention of the sect leader and master to have it. Both are indispensable, so you should give up on this idea. After hearing this, everyone felt a basin of cold water pouring down their hearts. It seems like just 2 requirements, not much. Compared with many cultivation methods in the starry sky with messy requirements, it is quite generous. But these 2 requirements all have the words "must be that disciple" written on them. How do you steal a teacher? Well, suddenly, many people gave up the idea of stealing from their master. However, in this general environment, there was another group of people who had different ideas from them. Become a disciple of that one. Doesn't it seem unacceptable? Even, it should be said that it is better to have a lower-level powerful person as the elder of the sect. For a time, many people secretly began to inquire overtly or covertly. In fact, many powerful people just fell into misunderstandings in their thinking. I think that a powerful man like Jia Yan with terrifying strength will not easily accept his disciples. So no one had any similar ideas. The arrival of the yin-yang sect disciples made their desires surge like a river opening its gates to release water. Oh! Someone wants to worship the yin-yang section. When Jia Yan learned the news, his son Jia Rong told him. At this time, the entire Jia family also came to the trading area. Jia Yan found a shady place for them that could accommodate everyone on earth, allowing them to practice their new bodies. However, Jia Rong and his son, who had already experienced this journey, had more time to go outside to inquire for information. Well, it doesn't mean that we can't establish a branch of yin-yang sect here. Jia Yan fell into deep thought. Dad, why don't you let me take charge of this yin-yang sect branch? You. Jia Yan looked at Jia Rong in surprise. Yes, I want to take responsibility. Jia Rong's expression remained unchanged. He used to be high-spirited and wanted to surpass his predecessors. But after his dream was shattered, he fell into another strange thinking circle, that is, he was just a tool to continue the incense of his bloodline. At least in terms of cultivation, he could not reach the level of a true genius. But things were different today. He got a brand new body. The experience he had experienced in just a short period of time told him that even if it was impossible to compare with that person in his dream, he would definitely have enough opportunities to step into the world of real strong men and take a look. So he was unwilling to turn around, go to the Earth Alliance to serve as a so-called high-ranking official, and continue to hang around. So since we want to get in touch with the real world of cultivation, the only solution now is to take over something closer to the world of cultivation. It is absolutely impossible to grow up solely relying on Jia Yan's protection. The strong cannot be sheltered casually. Otherwise, if there are so many descendants of strong people in the galaxy, why would most of them become mediocre people? It was based on this principle that he took over the affairs of the so-called yin-yang sect here. Even with his current strength, he cannot serve as the most critical person in charge, but paving the way in advance and dealing with a large number of experts from all walks of life are enough opportunities for him to learn a lot. Jia Yan took a deep look at his son. Okay, it's rare that you have such an idea, so I'll let you take responsibility. Thank you, father. Jia Rong smiled gratefully. Grandpa, I also have a mission. You go and practice hard for Grandpa. Eccentric. Jia 11 refused to give up. But he also knew that his character was not as good as his father Jia Rong's, and he was young and not as knowledgeable as Jia Rong. If he was really asked to take responsibility, it might be a bad thing. What's more, if you really don't let him take responsibility, he really can't interfere. Now there are no extra helpers around Dad. At most, he can let the Earthling workers who come in and out of the trade area help. If something really happens, he has to let his idle son do it. Okay, these are all things that haven't happened yet. You should go and practice well for me first. Otherwise, No matter how much responsibility I make of you, you won't be able to achieve your expectations if you don't have the strength. Jia Yan's work in the outside world can be said to be almost complete. In the outside world, he originally wanted to unite some experts to help fight against possible emergencies in the inner world in the future. But after thinking about it, he decided that now was not the time. Isn't there still hundreds of years left? I don't want the benefits of these hundreds of years. With the help of Qiao Qiao and Chu Xing, it is barely enough to deal with ordinary threats. My lord, please be sure to arrange a quota for me. On this day, a certain cooperative territory lord brought over the elders of his family. He is an extremely old territory lord who has been stuck in front of the resource territory lord's gate for thousands of years, and now he has run out of gas. You want to go in and give it a try? That's right, Master Jia Yan. If there is a chance to break through, it will not be a problem to live for thousands more years. I will definitely repay your kindness by then. Jia Yan was silent for a moment and nodded. There are actually many such existences in the galaxy. Chuxing and Jiqiao were almost like this at one time, but they still had a lot of lifespan and were far from exhausted. The person in front of me probably doesn't have a few more years to live. To be honest, Your Excellency, you asked your elder to follow me in. I have mentioned the situation inside in the report and in the reports of other staff members. You have to make it clear. I am afraid that if the senior enters, the chance of coming out is very high. Small. We have already thought about this. As long as His Excellency Jia Yan fulfills his elder's wishes, we will be mentally prepared. The other party let out a long sigh. Said to be an elder, he is actually his 10th generation ancestor. Now he is too old, and sometimes people are confused. As a domain lord level master, he can no longer help much with the affairs of the force in recent years. Instead of letting him die naturally in the power, it is better to send him into the other world to fight. Then you go with me. Jia Yan had already explained to his son, grandson, and others, and soon led the domain lord into the trade channel. In several stages of the passage, there were several trains, and Jia Yan's load was roughly calculated, and they were stuck at the rear. There were also many staff checking tickets at the ticket check station. Creatures large and small have calculated their position and weight and entered their predetermined positions. Keeping this person stuck in position does not need to be factored into the space and weight. I will bear this additional load myself. Yes. Seeing that Jia Yan had sent a new passenger and it was not included in the load, the staff quickly nodded and made arrangements. Not long after, the journey began. Jia Yan was pulling the train, and the people behind him could no longer see his face at all. Entering the long subspace is a distorted abnormal horizon. Is that person at the domain lord level? Why does he look so old? I'm afraid that the old domain lord is on his deathbed. I don't know what method was used to ask Master Jia Yan to send him into the inner world. It may be that the rumor that there is a chance of promotion in the inner world made him come in and take risks. I've been in and out twice. There was an opportunity for promotion, why didn't I see it? This old man is probably going to die in there. SHH, you are still a senior expert after all, don't say that. The old domain lord's eyes were dull. Apart from occasionally practicing unconsciously, he was almost in a daze the rest of the time. Jia Yan from the outside world doesn't care about this new passenger who joined last. Sure enough, this time I entered the deep subspace again, and the feeling of being affected by the other world became stronger and stronger. Jia Yan couldn't help but sigh as he felt the changes inside the other world. It is said that it will take hundreds of years for the world in this world to be close to the Milky Way, but this is just a judgment. Who knows if the pace of approach will increase? God knows if there are so many talented people in this world, they will develop the skills to enter and exit the subspace. More importantly, the closer we get, the more subspace chaos seems to be smoothed out. If nothing else happens, the process of accelerating the border between the inner world and the Milky Way has unexpectedly accelerated. Jia Yan smiled bitterly. Out of subspace. The feeling of incomparable insignificance in the other world emerged spontaneously. Jia Yan, who had transformed from a giant creature in the galaxy to a small creature in the other world, gradually got used to this change. Master Jia Yan, you are finally back. Those so-called visitors from the mainland have been waiting in our Chamber of Commerce for a long time. Oh. Jia Yan looked at the goddess emperor who came to report the news. Those mainland masters had already negotiated terms with Jia Yan. He said that he would clear the way, to let resources flow, and let the dynasty take the initiative to relax restrictions on the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Didn't you expect that it had already been done in such a short time? Jia Yan hurriedly went to see the foreign visitors. And just as he was leaving, among the passengers or workers, the old domain lord also got off the train in a daze and looked at the sky. Hey! He suddenly smiled with bright eyes. The old domain lord left. In the enlarged world, it seemed as if it quickly merged into the night and disappeared. When someone tried to look for it, they couldn't find it. After all, a master who is close to the level of a senior domain lord, in this world plane of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, there is no one who can compare with him except Goddess Emperor Jia Yan and others. No one cares about the situation of this territory lord. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3188. Jia Yan personally led him in and left quietly. Everyone thought that this was some person arranged by Jia Yan, thinking not to cause trouble to Jia Yan, and they didn't even talk in private. Ever since, to Jia Yan's surprise, the old domain lord had just disappeared. Lord Jia Yan, I'm so anxious to see what's going on. When they came to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, several outside influencers whom they had met came like old acquaintances. The clone of the Black God who was the previous companion nodded slightly and disappeared into the subspace. After the subspace became much more stable, the clones came and went more freely in the subspace. Guys, how are things going? It's almost done. Did the Imperial Court agree? Jia Yan was a little surprised. Several outside visitors had pleasant expressions, but their eyes were very cold and they said, "Of course I agree." Jia Yan's heart moved. These so-called visitors from the mainland really have great hands and eyes. And based on his opinion, the way they made the dynasty surrender should not be so friendly, but it did not cause any commotion, indicating that the power behind these people, or maybe they were powerful, was far beyond imagination. In this way, Jia Yan, who was not so interested in this group of visitors from the big place, finally became official. Okay, I'm here this time. There happen to be some goods that are not included in the dynasty's trade items. You have the right of first refusal. Is that so? Thank you so much, Mr. Jia Yan. I don't know where the goods are. Can we take a look first? Sure. The place where Jia Yan led the experts was the temporary Xiancheng warehouse, and it was a key area heavily guarded by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce and Xiancheng patrols. Everyone knows that the things inside are extremely valuable, but small forces cannot attack it, but the general trend can attack it, but this will cause the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce to cut off future goods, which is equivalent to killing the goose that lays the egg, and no one is willing to do it. In the same way, Jia Yan led these experts into the warehouse neatly, thinking that even if they could defeat him, they would not be able to attack him. Certainly. They can't beat it. The strongest among a group of beings who haven't even reached the senior domain lord level. With Jia Yan's current strength, one or two of them would die even if he just breathed. Hiss. Is this the third-class star core mentioned earlier? Is the effect really as magical as the legend says? Ah, there are second-class star cores over there, it's really. As a result, not long after entering the warehouse, These outside visitors almost couldn't help but want to take action. After all, the warehouse is full of rare treasures for today's people in the other world. The best one is naturally the star core, which has miraculous effects on guru-level experts. Nowadays, people in the inner world are also aware of the goods. Star cores are divided into several levels by them. For example, third-class star cores are the third level. Most masters can't help but snatch them away when they see them. And the first-class star core is something that even the emperors of the dynasty long for. However, in this warehouse, there are two first-class star cores. The weakest fifth-class star cores are of great help to the secondary division. Those present were not even at the level of a subdivision master. Fortunately, they were breathless for a moment because of the attraction of these jewelry, and then they endured it. Lord Jiayan, you really can test our temperament. Besides the star core, are there any other treasures? Let me see. This, could it be Tao-like heart-like treasures from the outside world? There are many mixed auras in them, which are definitely good for our cultivation. This is incredible. This is a so-called technological creation, and it has such an effect. Jia Yan led the people in, and they were like Lu Lao Lao entering the Grand View Garden, making unsatisfactory rumbles from time to time. Jia Yan didn't laugh, but answered with a smile. Finally, everything was introduced and the group of people stopped walking. The scene became silent. The visitor from the largest power, who was mainly talking to Jia Yan, said softly, "Well, Mr. Jia Yan, you have shown us so much. How much can you tell me? How much can you sell me?" Jia Yan remained silent. After they finished reading the questions, they smiled and evaded their words. "First of all, I want to know what benefits you can bring to me. I have cooperated very well with the dynasty. After the simple agreement last time, I thought about it and thought that the agreement was not cost-effective. You're such a foreigner, you want to break your promise and get fat." All the visitors and envoys showed furious expressions. But Jia Yan's expression remained unchanged. For a moment, the other party fell silent when they saw that Jia Yan didn't want to do this. In fact, both parties knew that Jia Yan would not be able to deal with them casually, not to mention the greater risks he would bear, and he could not guarantee the actual good and evil sincerity of the other party. "We can guarantee that we will allow you to send some people from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce to join our major forces regarding matters on the business road. Secondly, we can give you more systematic secrets on the cultivation of Taoism. Although it may be difficult for you as aliens to practice our way due to your physical fitness, it is not disappointing, isn't it?" Jia Yan nodded. "What about others? Didn't I say last time that the specific details would be discussed by the professionals below? Why do you want to intervene personally again? The last time was the last time. This time I was too busy." Jia Yan's words shocked the other party so much that he couldn't even recover his breath. What a profiteer! Isn't a profiteer the essence of a businessman? To me, this is equivalent to a compliment. Both sides fell silent again. But Jia Yan's reply perfectly explained the current situation on the court, and everyone's expressions were no longer so ugly. Although they are much larger than Jia Yan, in terms of actual combat power, they know that they are no match for Jia Yan, and they cannot vent their anger. And Jia Yan is right. He is a profiteer. Isn't it the essence of a profiteer to raise prices based on low prices and not keep promises when given the opportunity? But such an existence is actually easier to deal with. Because just use the benefits. Okay, I'll sit down and discuss the formal agreement for the next relationship. One person stands out from the crowd and is actually the leader among them all. Jia Yan's face changed wildly. In his perception, this originally mediocre weak seemed to have broken through some kind of shackles, and his strength skyrocketed from a level equivalent to that of a territory lord to a junior territory lord. And it is not an ordinary lower-level domain lord. In Jia Yan's perception, the opponent might be strong enough to fight against him. It's hard to say whether he will win or lose. He must be stronger, but he is definitely better than Master Lei. Maybe even as good as Chuxing and Jiji. I didn't expect that Your Excellency is among this group of friends. Well, I'll go up and negotiate carefully. Don't worry, I told you to pick a few of the goods here. I'll let you pick a few. The price will definitely be discounted. It's my right to do so. Please pay compensation for going back on your word. Jia Yan looked deeply at the strong man and expressed his intention to give in. The other party was very satisfied, and the followers behind him also showed ridicule. Looking at the problem from their perspective, Jia Yan is afraid. It didn't take long. A group of calm-looking visitors from the sea left the location of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. I didn't expect that among those messengers, there was an extremely powerful person. The goddess emperor was beside Jia Yan, her eyes full of surprise. She entertained these guys for several days, but she didn't feel there was anything special about him. The cultivation system of the other world is broad and profound, and in terms of hidden strength, it is indeed much better than our galaxy's cultivation system, but this does not mean that he is stronger. The goddess emperor looked deeply at Jia Yan and felt the confidence in Jia Yan's words, and it was not the kind of confidence that was soothing or overly arrogant. It's true confidence. It is a great blessing for our trading area to have a sea-fixing needle like Your Excellency. Jia Yan smiled, but Mosquito's expression was silent, making it difficult to tell why he was smiling. Okay, you go back and do your own thing. I'll let people take a look later. It's time to reward those of you who have worked hard in the other world. The goddess emperor's beautiful eyes lit up, but she didn't say anything and left. Compared to my Geo family, or the entire Earthlings whose genes are too weak, the real strong people in the galaxy are actually the ones with unlimited potential. It's a pity. Jia Yan is not the kind of person who cherishes talents of everyone he meets. He would not chase a strong person who might become stronger and ask them to be transferred to become his disciple. What's more, strong people already have their own path. If they change their cultivation at will, there is a greater chance that they will get twice the result with half the effort. So when he gets involved, it's mostly just to make people laugh and make people look down upon him. For workers in the other world like the goddess emperor, the rewards should be based on certain things I discovered from the other world. Sure enough, the predecessors are the predecessors. They said that there are great opportunities in the other world, and they will never lie to me. Jia Yan smiled and walked back. No one except Jia Yan himself knew what he had said to those visitors from the mainland and what conditions he had agreed to. You, who are you? Damn it, you're just a tiny creature, how dare you do this, how dare you do this? A small town in a quiet corner. In other words, it's not even a small town. This is the residence of a certain family. In the soil of the dynasty, many big forces or ancient families developed some city-like areas on their own because of their strong strength. Although most of them are not as big as the city's large-scale construction of 100,000 kilometers of city walls, but there is also a certain appearance, wandering outside the laws of the dynasty. And just today, a small town with a relatively small family was invaded by a tiny creature. It's really an invasion. Single-handedly, this creature, who was much smaller than the average resident, swaggered from the gate of the city and fought all the way to the core area of the family. Many methods and many family masters took action, but no one could do anything about it. A small creature? It is true that I am not tall even among the same level, but this is not the reason for you to despise the strong. The little creature's momentum suddenly changed in an instant, as if it had transformed into an extremely terrifying ancient giant. It swung out its claws and destroyed the core hall of the city's families with one claw. You know, this main hall is so big that it stretches over tens of thousands of kilometers. Destruction difficulty is like destroying a planet in the galaxy with one claw. But it was still destroyed by his claw. This shows how powerful this strong man is. This. The family patriarch was dumbfounded and felt his legs trembling. Guru, Guru. No. Not just Guru. You, what kind of monster are you? Monster. Poof. This tiny old creature easily slapped the clan leader to death with a single paw. A master who had achieved several master levels died in his hands just like that. If I were to give you my name in my hometown, it would be absolutely shocking. Countless comrades from the forces would kneel down to greet me. Did I not expect that when I entered this place, I would be called a monster by a mere weakling like you? Hee, you can be a demon, you just need to let me, an old demon, find an opportunity to be promoted. It doesn't matter what you call it. This old guy. It was actually the old territory lord who was transported in by Jia Yan. Just like the mainland's top master who hid his strength and even Jia Yan couldn't see it, Jia Yan didn't see this person's strength either. Soon after, the old creature that was ravaging the area slowly walked out of the dilapidated family residence. The city has been destroyed, with heavy casualties, probably not even 1 out of 10. He also received a large amount of supplies, and there were a large number of survivors behind him who were urged by him to help transport them. The inner world is indeed an inner world. It hides opportunities for promotion for us. I have to thank Jia Yan. He sneered. Casting his gaze in a certain direction, the old creature thought for a moment. Forget it, I wanted to directly control the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, but the feeling I felt before should not be wrong. That Jia Yan, although the steps of Tianlu are far weaker than me, he actually has a vague threat. My idea is to seek stability, otherwise, my lifespan will not be able to support the day when I get the opportunity. In terms of the heavenly path, my current strength has probably reached the level of 16 or 17 steps on the heavenly path. But with the power of my unique formations, it's no problem to take a few more steps. 18 or 19 steps. In other words, if I explode some formations with superimposed power, I can instantly surpass or reach 30 steps. Jia Yan measured his own strength. Find bookstore. Heavenly Road is the best way for him to measure himself now. The Heavenly Road that reaches the 99th floor is the top of the entire Heavenly Road. Jia Yan believes that it should be beyond the 99th floor and is about to reach the true power of a powerful person like the Taishang. But the middle process, now that I think about it, was too difficult. He believed that it would be difficult to kill him when he first entered Heavenly Road, but he would be suppressed within 3 moves. Then he would have to use the subspace to escape with his life. If he didn't escape, he would be killed within 10 moves. My former self. But with this kind of strength, it's only 16 or 17 steps. I imagined before that the strength gap between the lower ranks of domain lords is not big, and it's a bit like watching the sky from the bottom of a well. Jia Yan sorted out the levels of strength and then made a list. His current strength, not to mention the strength of the formation, should be much better than Jiji Chuxing and the two, but it is difficult to kill them. So Chuxing and the others are almost 10 steps away, or a little higher. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3189. It can be killed by using the power of the formation. 2 against 1, there was nothing he could do. As for Master Lei, after Jia Yan fought against Master Lei several times, he could clearly feel that the so-called guru at Master Lei's level was not as clever as them. At most, he is only about 5 or 6 steps of Tianlu's strength. The two of them can also kill each other one-on-one with a little bit of realism. The overseas visitor I saw today. Jia Yan quickly became serious. He placed this person's strength at 17, no, after thinking about it, he placed it at 20 steps. We haven't fought each other yet, but judging from his aura, his overall sense of Tao, and his ability to hide his identity from my detection, his superficial strength is stronger than mine. At 20 steps, even if he uses the power of the formation, yin-yang dao explosions, formation superposition explosions and other powerful means, it will be difficult to kill him, or in other words, he will have to fight to the death to both sides before he can kill him. It's impossible for Jia Yan to be able to compete to that level. There is no big conflict of interest. But these are all hidden enemies. This must be the person who caused the dynasty to give up certain interests and let them intervene in the dynasty's internal affairs. Jia Yan quickly analyzed it again. In the boudoir compound of the dynasty, the strongest man who has been protecting the dynasty vaguely is probably not what he originally thought. He has reached the level of too high, a late-level power in the galaxy. But there are not many paths to heaven. Of course he can sit in the dynasty and keep the royal family. He must be definitely not weak. He may be stronger than the overseas visitor. Then I will make a rough judgment. Jia Yan brought the hidden strong man to the heavenly road level of about 30 steps. After thinking about it, he raised the level a little further and dropped it to about 31 or 2 steps. Beyond 31 or 2 steps, that strong man cannot be threatened by a strong man of 20 steps. No compromise is possible either. Just kill him directly. And it can sit still, and it is definitely not weak, so it is about the same after 30 steps. Of course, this is just my preliminary setting. It does not rule out that the dynasty may have more than one person in charge, nor does it rule out the possibility that this overseas visitor may have more than one top master. However, judging from various signs, Jia Yan believes that it is impossible for both parties to have more than one person. If the dynasty had more masters like this, they would not sit back and watch the dynasty rot like this. And if more overseas forces come, they will not be able to be so calm. What's more, his galactic business power has only just shown some signs. If the interests can be guaranteed, there will probably not be more strong people willing to take the trouble to make a trip in person. It's quite a face-saving thing to have a top expert come. If there have been several transactions, conflicts will not arise next time. Jia Yan thought of these guys and swore about how powerful the forces behind them were, and he suddenly felt a little headache. Jia Yan was really that strong. Each one is so shocking, each force has a few masters of about 20 steps, it doesn't need to be more, just 3 or 4, and he will have to run away. But don't worry. The increasingly calm subspace is not only a crisis for the Milky Way, but also an advantage for me. If the space is closed in the future, maybe even overseas can use subspace movement, then I am not afraid of the overwhelming number of people. Most of the powerful people in the inner world. Who prevents them from entering the subspace? Thinking of this, Jia Yan couldn't help but yearn for it. After returning, he tried again. Being close to the subspace again has given him the ability to freedom in subspace in most of the dynasty's territory. This is also the reason why he just felt that the strong man who was stronger than him on the surface was still calm and composed. It is impossible to lose even in 20 steps. Why? Because he is a person with subspace talents who started his career by fighting the weak to defeat the strong. He thinks that if he is stronger than himself on the surface, he will definitely win. It will kill you. Jia Yan is absolutely confident in this. It is also his confidence and trump card. The capital of the dynasty. The emperor is menstruating here, and I don't know when he will return. The emperor is away, rebels are everywhere, people from overseas are coming to cause trouble, and barbarians from the underground have appeared. I wonder if you have any good ideas. As the supervisor under the emperor's orders and also the prime minister, the golden lion stood in the hall with his head held high. From the looks of it, he almost sat down on the throne. It's a pity that he didn't dare. The current situation also stopped him from thinking about it. The dynasty is in crisis, and even those people in the temple who sit in court all day long and ignore the world's affairs and don't care about the bottom class are also feeling it. The overseas people have extraordinary origins and are more than 100 billion miles away from our dynasty. We can make good friends with them. One of the three ministers in the court stood out and expressed his opinion. As for the rebels, although they seem to be coming fiercely, rebels cannot succeed. This is the eternal principle of our dynasty. But this time the rebellion is so powerful, there must be some black hands to intervene later. This the Black Hand must send someone to investigate. Secondly, the underground barbarians are the most dangerous to our dynasty. It is better to send all the troops from the province to encircle and suppress them. At least they will kill the chickens and scare the monkeys, so that they will not dare to start another war for at least hundreds of years. The ministers discussed it a lot. There are those who agree, and there are those who are against it. But wherever there is intelligent life, there are destined to be rivers and lakes, and this so-called imperial court is actually no different from the ancient Chinese court on earth. There are many people who form cliques for personal gain. Among the four prime ministers, the prime minister has almost all the power, while the other three prime ministers work together to fight against each other. Most of the say in the entire court is in their hands. But besides this, there are stronger speakers in the court than they are. That is the relative party surrounding the Queen Mother. This group of foreign relatives generally don't speak because they know how to govern the country and are basically laymen. But once he opened his mouth, it was a sure thing, because there was the endorsement of the Empress Dowager, who now had control of Chaogang's orthodoxy. In the absence of the emperor, the Empress Dowager listened to the affairs behind the curtain, so she was the Queen Dowager. The AI family heard what you said clearly. The Queen Mother, who was listening behind the curtain, suddenly spoke. This is a huge female giant that resembles a human body but is part of the giant race. However, her lips are red and her teeth are white. If her size is ignored, she can be called a woman who is shy of the moon. Overseas guests have been frightened away by the royal elders. From now on, unless they actively harass the country's military and civilians, we will leave them alone. The ministers whispered. It turned out that the royal one took action. But, why does it sound like I won, but I didn't win completely? Otherwise, the so-called overseas visitors will not dare to come to the dynasty area again. Secondly, the rebels are raging, and the AI family wants to recruit new troops on behalf of the emperor. However, the imperial treasury is empty, and they have to urgently increase their wages by 2 rates. From today on, let's announce it to the people of the world. The Queen Mother clearly knows that the Queen Mother should give more consideration to this matter. The increase in wages is destined to cause more suffering to the people. The number of thieves may greatly increase, leading to more and more anti-thief forces. One of the secondary ministers kept shouting. The ministers stared coldly at the deputy prime minister who was running and shouting for the people, and they all showed sneers. It wasn't until the minister stopped talking that they quietly looked away. It was impossible for them to refuse anything the Queen Mother asked. The dynasty has never had the experience of being cornered by rebels, so from their perspective, every time they add decorations, it is the opportunity for ministers and the interest groups behind them to make the greatest profits. The Queen Mother added 2 breaths, and if they put it into practice, they would dare to add 5 breaths. That's 50%. People's grievances are completely ignored. At most, they only care about whether there will be a situation where people starve to death on a large scale. Usually at that time, they will more or less stop and wait for the people of the dynasty to recuperate and then endure it again. Their gluttonous feast. As for the underground clan, the Queen Mother's cold words were more solemn. The confrontation with the underground clan has run through the entire history of the dynasty since its birth, and it has been so long that the rulers of the dynasty are a little bored. But this underground clan is like a dogskin plaster, unable to be killed no matter what. If you lose and flee underground, it is impossible for the imperial soldiers to pursue the enemy's nest. If you win, they will devour the resources of a large area and then flee underground. This time the underground barbarian troops are advancing on the territory. I'm afraid it's like the rebellion, and there's a dark hand behind it. The Queen Mother suddenly said shocking words. The ministers suddenly condensed. What news does the Queen Mother have? The Prime Minister asked. The giant woman behind the curtain nodded. The AI family has obtained information. The recent affairs of this dynasty are inextricably related to a foreign force. Which one? The Chamber of Commerce that claims to be aliens. Galaxy Chamber of Commerce? How is it them? Aren't they an ordinary Chamber of Commerce? How dare you? Everyone's eyes changed, but some people were smart and thought of the reason directly. How can outsiders be so easily ruled by your dynasty and become honest and obedient citizens? Are you exploiting me at all levels to do business? Look at the people overseas, and then look at the underground tribe. If we don't cause trouble, are we still called foreigners? Humph, it's actually this group of insignificant merchants. Queen Mother, please lead the army to kill all these outsiders. A general walked out angrily. If the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is really the mastermind behind the recent events in the dynasty, this matter is huge. It's not outrageous to wipe it out. Commander Chi, there is no need to be angry. This Galaxy Chamber of Commerce can avoid the death penalty. The Prime Minister immediately came out and stopped his request. The ministers seemed to agree. After the general's impulse passed, he subconsciously thought about it, nodded, and retreated to his original position. Too easy. If this Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is just an ordinary Chamber of Commerce, even if it is a top-notch Chamber of Commerce in the dynasty, they can easily decide its life or death with just one word. But the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is no ordinary company. It's been more than a year. How many products did the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce bring to the dynasty that fascinated everyone? There are not only cultivation equipment, but also so-called technological products, which cover all aspects, people's livelihood, military economy, etc., all-encompassing. What's even more depressing is that countless people and research talents of the dynasty have studied the products of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. At best, they can only understand the principles and manufacturing methods of some of the objects, and there is no price advantage at all. That is to say, without the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, the entire dynasty can no longer use those things. Not to mention, most of the high-end products of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, such as training materials, are actually produced in the Milky Way. That is another world. Even if the dynasty figured out how to make it, it would be impossible to make it. My neck is stuck. If they fall out, even if they kill everyone in the dynasty of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, what can they do? Especially the practitioners. Having become accustomed to the several star core products developed by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, I am afraid that their cultivation speed will be greatly reduced, and they can no longer live without this thing. Since the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is the mastermind behind many incidents, punishment is necessary. Master Feng, please organize a team of masters to go to Xiancheng to supervise and punish the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Yes. A 500-kilometer-long creature shrouded in the breeze hugged its paws. Although we have acted very carefully, it is only a matter of time before we are exposed. After all, this is not the galaxy we are waiting for. But we have already prepared how to deal with it after exposure. We just need your cooperation, otherwise there will be attrition. Jia Yan has recently organized many symposiums for Chamber of Commerce staff. During the meeting, he talked about the work progress, historical origins, and difficulties encountered by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Many staff members were drowsy after hearing this. Fortunately, there is still useful information. That is why he asked all Galaxy Chamber of Commerce staff in the other world to conduct a surprise attack drill every other week. This exercise is by no means something that can be dealt with. Everyone is strong. Except for a few young Earthlings, most of them are above the venerable level, and there are also several territory lord level masters. This level of strength is not considered weak in the galaxy. The content of the exercise greatly increased people's sense of security. Lord Jiayan, there is an emergency. Just when a certain chamber of commerce where Jiayan held another general meeting was closed at night, a voice came from the communicator. What's the situation? Many of the most powerful people in the dynasty mentioned in the intelligence are moving quickly, and their target is Xiancheng. Jia Yan's face changed slightly. But he remained calm in the face of danger. It just happened that when I was waiting for the meeting, I found the bookstore and even saved the time of gathering. Jia Yan sneered. Everyone has received it, it's an emergency. Now I am announcing that all trade zone workers are going to the station. I will send you there first, and then send you back after the situation stabilizes. Some workers are also dissatisfied. I just discussed it with a big client yesterday. I have to make a transaction tomorrow. Without the commission from that transaction, my loss will be too great. You kid, you really think of yourself as a trading staff member. You are at the galaxy level. Go back and practice well. I've been a store clerk for so long that I really forgot. No one was nervous at all, they were chatting and laughing. Because the intelligence personnel who passed on the information discovered the situation hundreds of millions of kilometers away, by the time the group of world masters who came to Xi'an City arrived, they would have been able to make several trips back and forth, let alone leave. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3190. Jia Yan's speed out of the subspace has become faster and faster. Who can let a habit become natural? Not long after, the overcrowded train set sail again, with most of the staff in the entire carriage. Hey, Master Jia Yan, the system seems to have lost one domain lord level and a few less powerful people in the system count. What should we do now? Lord of the territory? Is it him? Jia Yan quickly remembered who the so-called young territory lord was. That old domain lord. However, it seems that it may not be a good thing for him to lead him in out of kindness. Since he disappeared, it means that he did not receive the intelligence notification, and he may have died outside, or some accident occurred. It's the path chosen by others, and it's not up to them to control it. The benevolence and righteousness are gone. Don't worry, these people may not be in Xiancheng, and there is little chance that they will be affected by this matter. Okay. After arranging these workers, Jia Yan stood up directly, tore apart the subspace, and pulled the extra long train to set sail. Everyone in the train couldn't help but turn around and look at the cracks in subspace that were gradually closing, including the goddess emperor. She was one of the first staff to come to the other world with Jia Yan, and even established the Chamber of Commerce team in the other world with Jia Yanko. Now that she is leaving, it feels a little strange. God knows when I will be back. Don't worry, everyone, I'll be back soon. Jia Yan released his brainwave power in front of him, causing everyone to calm down slightly. That's right, with such a huge investment and a lot of energy, the leaders of the trade zone, including Jia Yan, would never give up on the other world. After taking the train out of the subspace and entering the passage of the trade area, Jia Yan didn't say much, but turned back and got back into the subspace again. The goddess emperor was stunned. She only knew that the person who came was very strong, but she didn't expect that Jia Yan would dare to go back. The Guru team. In other words, a group of late-level domain masters, Lord Jia Yan, dare to return. It's me who made things simple for you. Suddenly she thought of something and laughed to herself. Jia Yan's abilities are diverse. After working with Jia Yan for so long, She can't figure out how many killer skills Jia Yan has mastered. And these skills are almost not an attribute routine. Subspace ability, yin and yang ability, explosion ability, array ability. Each of them can be called a heaven-defying artifact of the same level, but so many abilities are mastered by one person. Besides, Jia Yan also has physical fitness and other advantages, which these goddess emperors don't actually know. A team of masters. In the subspace, Jia Yan's transformation was very firm and not just a whim. After being in the other world for a long time, he felt like he hadn't moved for a long time and his body was a little rusty. After all, he is a great genius who has reached the level he is today in just over 100 years, and he is either fighting or on the way to fight. After being idle for more than a year, he was still in an environment surrounded by strong men. He had to work hard to resist the urge to take action many times. Now the dynasty came to visit. It just so happens that Jia Yan also knows very well that the other party has a limit, and he has not yet broken through the other party's limit. Then it is necessary to weigh each other. Whether to fight or draw next, or to some extent cooperate while fighting, can set a tone through this confrontation. This is actually something Jia Yan has been preparing for. Otherwise, he doesn't know that if he connects the major forces in other people's territory and acts as a mastermind behind the scenes, he will definitely be discovered. After all, the Milky Way people in this world have two distinctive characteristics, and it will only be a matter of time before they are discovered. Puff. The giant mosquito stepped into the very small world from the huge one in the trade area. Cognition has been somewhat affected. But Jia Yan quickly adapted. After all, he was used to it. Aren't you here yet? That's all. I'm just waiting for work at my station. These guys won't say that it's despicable for me to be alone and wait for work. Actually, not mean. Even if the group of guys who came knew that Jia Yan had already detected their arrival and dared to wait openly in the territory, they would definitely give a thumbs up and praise them. This is no longer a question of being brave or not. It's just a lack of strength in the head that makes him dare to confront such a large number of masters. The little Xiancheng is right in front of us. Everyone, it is said that the Lord of Xiancheng and Master Lei are closely involved with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. It is best to pay attention to whether they will join forces with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Haha, the future is too unreasonable to worry about. I'm waiting for the master to come together. Even if Master Lei and Lord Xian all turn to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, so what? Can they still create any waves? That's true. But it's always right to pay attention. If the Lei Master's disciples stationed here and the Lord of Xiancheng make any changes in a while, just kill them on the spot. In the sky, several figures flashed across the sky. A large number of mountains, forests, creatures, strong men, and people below him were at a loss to feel the shocking pressure they radiated, and they were all at a loss what to do. Many people didn't know until today that there were so many masters in the dynasty. And what's even more rare is that these experts all went out together. I don't know which evildoer I'm going to deal with. A mosquito. Not far away, the landform of Xiancheng appeared in front of us. The top masters at the guru level narrowed their eyes. They knew nothing about the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. But it is clear that this is a force from outside the world. The former visitor from outside the world almost destroyed the dynasty. Everyone, I wonder why you are heading to Xiancheng with such force. Suddenly, a blue stream of light shot up from below the mountain forest not far from Xiancheng. The masters paused slightly and looked at the rising blue light. Discover the strength of the opponent. It's mediocre, at least in terms of Dao power level, quite inferior, even unsightly. The size is also very ordinary, but the surface of its body is covered with a large amount of blue light layer after layer, as if it is covered with layers of armor, causing the body shape to expand several times, barely reaching the size of 100 kilometers. Compared to all the masters who came here, he was still small. "Who are you?" A master emerged from the crowd, his body like an enlarged bear, very majestic. At the same time, several other masters also used their power to explore the blue light creature blocking their progress. They didn't believe that this guy was a weakling. Judging from his speed, he was at least not at the level of an ordinary deist. He might have reached the level of a city lord. Of course they are still noobs. In Xiaojiayan, Tian will be the person in charge of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Galactic Chamber of Commerce. The expressions on the faces of all the masters were fierce, and their eyes no longer looked contemptuous, but became serious. They came to weigh the so-called Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Even if they feel that the forces that can set off many recent waves in the dynasty are not strong, they do not believe that the other party is really not strong. Otherwise, how dare you show up? I didn't expect that I would bump into the real owner here. It was unexpected. The guru who spoke suddenly had sharp eyes. Your Excellency, Jiayan, right? We suspect that your Galaxy Chamber of Commerce colludes with the rebels, supports the underground tribes, and is also involved with the Far West. You happen to be the person in charge. Come with us to the capital. Jiayan seemed to have expected it. He was calm and composed in his heart, but his expression suddenly showed a sense of grievance. Dear friends, this is probably an unwarranted accusation made by our competitors against our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has acted upright, but we have definitely not done any of the above-mentioned illegal things. Yes or no, it's not a matter of gossip now, you just have to follow me. The master laughed ferociously, and the whole world was filled with sand and rocks. The sky suddenly turned dark, as if some unimaginable horror was about to happen. Jiayan was slightly cautious, but his face was expressionless. The people of the Milky Way, are not arrested just by the imperial dynasty. I'm sorry, if there is anything, you can just tell me directly. If you want to arrest someone, I forgive Jia for not cooperating. It's not up to you. The sky is even darker. In the darkness, a giant hand as big as the sky grabbed hard in the direction of Jiayan. It was so majestic that it seemed like it could crush someone to death with one grab. Jiayan laughed. The people in the imperial dynasty are indeed very domineering. After saying that, one of his frosty front legs moved. Blue light flashed from the surface of his body, and one of them suddenly jumped out and turned into a blue halo. Jiayan's feet kept moving, and halos of light separated from the surface of his body and flew towards the huge palm stretched out in the dark sky. The palm of the hand covers the sky and the sun, and seems to be tens of thousands of kilometers in size. Even the earth can be easily held in it. The first aperture collided with the big black hand, sending out a silent shock wave, like a circle of ripples on the front of the giant palm, but this collision was just a flash in the pan. The giant hand only rippled slightly, and immediately continued to grab Jia unabated. Rock. But after that, there are second and third pictures. Countless blue halos collided with it. What is this? It's not our way of cultivating Taoism. It's really the cultivation techniques of people from outside the world. This person's energy is different from ours, but with a touch of spiritual skills. Interesting. Several masters watched the confrontation in the sky unmoved. Although they were a little surprised, they just regarded it as watching the excitement. Their number reached 5. In front of the 5 masters, even if the so-called person in charge of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has the ability to know the world, it is impossible to turn out the palm of his hand. It's not that from the royal family. It seems that it is impossible for this Galaxy Master to reach that level. Boom. The world returned to its original state, as if nothing had happened just now. Jiayan silently gathered all his strength, feeling relieved and wanting to laugh. It turns out that this is virtualization. Just now, he and the bear-like guy opposite him were not fighting in the ordinary world, but in a state of virtuality. After practicing Taoism in the later stages, the Tao realm will naturally arise. This Tao realm is the reason why it is difficult to catch Jia Yan and Lay Master and other masters when they fight against them. Because they have all entered the realm of emptiness. For so long, Jia Yan's biggest threat to Taoist masters was solved by the fight just now. No more worries about blurring. Because he also mastered the general method of virtualization to enter the Taoist world. Dare I ask, are you the strongest expert in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce? A trace of respect gradually appeared on the majestic body of the bear cultivator. With this move, Jia Yan also verified his own strength, which was at least at the same level as him. If there are such masters in the entire Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, then the dynasty must treat them carefully, otherwise such a power will be a threat to the dynasty. I'm sorry to disappoint you all. Our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is not a dynasty full of talented people. I'm afraid there aren't many people as good as me. Not much. So is it there or not? All the masters suddenly went crazy. You can't say much, this is too much explanation. In their dynasty, there were not many masters. But it is still possible to pull out more than 10 or 20. In the case of an explosion, it is possible to find some powerful masters and others to get 30. This is also a small category. Let's talk about it. The fight didn't stop. The body of the bear creature flickered, and at the same time, the whole person fell into a state of virtualization. They can maintain their semi-virtual state at any time and switch their virtual body structure at will. But Jia Yan is far from able to do it. It was only after he fought with Master Lei and others a few days ago that he finally found a way to enter the virtual state in a short time. It was completely impossible for him to perform such a precise operation. What's more, there are too few traces of Dao power on his body. This so-called alien has very little grasp of Dao power. But his body has energy similar to mine. It's really magical. If we can catch it, we can look into it later. Go Xiong and Jia Yan exchanged several moves, all testing the range. But the other four masters laughed and commented. Not nervous at all. Jia Yan couldn't help but angrily cursed, everyone, are you happy too early? Have you convinced Xia? Haha, I'm sorry, Your Excellency Jia Yan, we are indeed not respectful enough. But, even though you missed it, it's pretty much the same. Under the supervision of me and 5 other people of the same rank, what else can you do? Then we have to taste it carefully. They were smiling and talking to Jia Yan in the middle of the fight, still watching the fun. Fellow Taoists, please, and you won't even think about me taking action. I've done my best. Don't make me feel like I haven't done anything. Master Xiong couldn't laugh or cry. However, the dynamics of the confrontation between the two gradually escalated from groping for each other's fighting energy to a true guru-level fight. You can still keep up with my speed. The bear creature's eyes became serious and he stopped joking. He also believed that no matter how strong the aliens from the outside world were who did not master Taoist power, they would only be like that. But a small creature like Jia Yan was shrouded in strange blue power. He used his feet or various melee skills to fight him back and forth. Even if he reaches the pinnacle of his strength, he can still be the next step. This surprised him a little. Is there really a power comparable to Taoist power in the world? Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3191. And at the same time, Jia Yan, on the other hand, is much calmer than him. In his mind, he roughly assessed the opponent's strength level. About, the 4th step of cultivation? Or around the 5th step, similar to the Thunder Master, but because of the Thunder Master's bonus to the power of thunder, it will be a small step weaker than the Thunder Master. Jia Yan learned how to use the number of steps on the heavenly path to calculate the level of strong men of the same level. Now when he looks at the enemy, he is no longer so confused. The opponent who was 4 or 5 steps away was not a big enemy to him now. It can be easily defeated head-on without the use of subspace talents or other killer weapons. This friend from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce still has hidden power. Good guy, he is indeed an extraordinary being. At this time, several people watching the battle also saw the secret. This being from the so-called galaxy can still retain his strength in this level of confrontation. This shocked them a little. The masters of the Imperial dynasty are basically similar in strength. In other words, at the master level, they have many hurdles that need to be overcome before they can achieve a huge improvement in strength. This is a high-level threshold for cultivating Taoism. Without a breakthrough, people of the same level are of the same level. For example, those who are better than them in terms of attributes such as Thunder Master are only slightly better than them in actual combat. It is difficult to defeat the same level. And the non-cultivator in front of them might actually have stronger cultivation strength than them. Let me see what the cultivators of TNY are capable of. Another master who mastered the fire attribute joined the battle group with a flash in his eyes. Since one person is not necessarily an opponent, they use numbers to win. Otherwise there wouldn't be so many people coming. This is just a mission, not an upright competition. Hey, it would be nice to be like this earlier. Jia Yan instantly felt a sharp increase in pressure. Buzz. In the virtual world, a sea of fire invaded his body, but Jia Yan's body surface was protected by a large amount of blue formation power. In addition, his body was stronger than the strong cultivator, so this temperature was not suitable for him. For him, it's like taking a bath, no problem at all. Aren't you even afraid of my virtual sea of fire? The fire attributed master who transformed into a sea of fire had an expression on his face. The world seemed to have turned into his face. He opened his mouth suddenly, and a fireball tens of thousands of kilometers long spewed down. Give me your life. On the other end, the giant black hand turned into a claw this time and stabbed directly into Jia Yan's body. The two of them had no sense of loyalty and directly used some kind of killer move to jointly attack Jia Yan. With the two of them working together, the threat level in this virtual world has reached about a strong man of 12 or 13 steps. Sure enough, the power of cultivation has a greater advantage than the masters of cosmic power in terms of cooperation. At such a critical juncture, Jia Yan could still be distracted by thinking about combat evaluation issues. Masters of Taoism, there is a great mystery in the Tao power of cultivation, and these supreme principles of cultivation are in principle the same, which means that if they join forces, they can really exert the effect of 1 + 1 = 2. This is not something that can be easily accomplished. For example, the more powerful the masters in the galaxy are, the more difficult it is for them to join forces at a higher level, because the skills they essentially practice are completely incompatible. True union to start with, unless it is a completely common practice technique, the probability of 1 + 1 being less than 1 is extremely high. It's different for masters of Taoism. While thinking, a fireball appeared. Jia Yan actually let the large number of azure formations blocking the front retreat towards the back of his body. Reveal his true identity. Bear. What? How dare he use his body to catch my flames? Humph, my master's flame is known as the most powerful fire in the dynasty. If you dare to despise me like this, you will be burned to death. The face transformed by the flames changed several times, and then became ferocious. The entire sea of fire continued to heat up and became as bright as the sun. Puff. Just when Black Hand was about to join the encirclement, the sea of fire was cut open by something sharp. A very magical scene happened. The sky and the earth are white and black. This sharp thing seems to cut the sky and the earth neatly into two parts along the black and white edges. It was crisp and clean, and Jia Yan was knocked directly out of it, causing the two energy surges to collide and return without success. Puff, boom, rumble. The illusion was broken, and the two masters looked at Jia Yan, who had escaped from their encirclement, with extremely ugly expressions. "Are you guys still watching the show? Let's do it. Hee hee, I just want to see the so-called aliens' methods. They are really extraordinary. The Queen Mother has given us orders. We don't want to defeat the few with more. Please forgive me, Your Excellency Jia Yan." The remaining masters saw that the situation was not good and were ready to truly join forces. The 5 masters joined forces, but they didn't think they could handle this alien visitor calmly. After all, the action just now was enough to see a lot of things clearly. Unless Jia Yan can show mercy under the attacks of the 2 great masters, then he doesn't have to engage in intrigues with people in the dynasty or engage in bribery and other means. He can just kill them and bleed them into rivers. Maybe the effect will be better. It shows that Jia Yan's strength is not good either. They were working together, and their momentum suddenly changed. Sure enough, masters at the guru level will naturally have miraculous effects if they join forces. I shouldn't be able to handle so many masters joining forces to attack. Jia Yan was surrounded by 5 masters, with no escape route from top to bottom, left or right, like trying to catch a turtle in an urn. His eyes fell on several strong men who were about to besieged. "Your Excellency Jia Yan, we only need one reason for the matter regarding the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Please just surrender and arrest him. Otherwise, if there is any damage, it will inevitably harm the peace between you and me. Yes, we really have no intention of killing you, don't make the mistake," the 5 masters said with some sincerity. They think this is goodwill. No matter how strong Jia Yan is, he can't resist the 5 powerful men joining forces. Hee hee, thank you 5 for your kindness, but since I dare to take the initiative to show up, how could I do this if I didn't have any confidence? Jia Yan shook his head with a sneer, and with a vigorous movement of his feet, he jumped into the subspace crack before the fire attribute master attacked. Ah! This! The fire attribute master's face suddenly changed color. Is this the so-called subspace talent? Then, what kind of space did I enter? Why did it give me such a terrifying feeling? Escaped. Suddenly the expressions of the 5 people changed drastically. They had already heard that the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce controlled the so-called subspace capabilities, but they were dubious until they saw it with their own eyes. Now entering the subspace in front of them can be said to be an eye-opener for them. Try to see if I can enter. No. I have no clue at all. Damn it, the 5 great masters tried to do it, but they ran away. If this matter spreads, the 5 of us will lose face. These few people are not out of touch, but their expressions are not so good looking. You can guess with your toes that in Xiancheng at this time, the members of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce who got the news have already evacuated or found a place to hide. They were just trying to defeat him. Looking through the past and present, there are very few cases where the 5 great masters have been unable to defeat their opponents. If word spreads, they will definitely be used as a background wall to achieve the prestige of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Your Excellencies, you actually thought that I was going to run away. You are too underestimated by Xia. Just when they were disappointed and about to fly to Xiancheng to explore and maybe gain something, a familiar voice came from behind one person. It was Jia Yan, who had just fought with them for half the battle. You. That guru is a bear-like creature that uses dark abilities. He didn't notice anyone appearing next to him at all, and suddenly felt that there was an extra person beside him as if flashing out of nowhere. His expression was extremely surprised. Turning back is the big hand of darkness grabbing at the place where the sound comes from. But the big hand was in vain, and Jia Yan's figure appeared again on the other side. Puff. The sharp blue feet cut open the surface of the person's body and penetrated deeply into his body. Ah, such hard feet. This seemingly huge creature turned out to be strong on the outside but weak on the inside. The feet that were superimposed by Jia Yan's azure defense were slashed, as if he had encountered some kind of magic weapon, and he was severely injured. As expected, the existence of the other world does not cultivate the physical body very much. Jia Yan remained calm, cut out his injuries, and did not rush into anything. He chose to re-enter the subspace and sealed the entrance to the space. What seems like a complicated process actually happens in a flash. From Jia Yan making a sound, then cutting open the chest of the giant bear creature, and its disappearance, all were completed in an instant. Even the fire attribute expert beside the giant bear was a step too slow when he wanted to rescue him. Jia Yan has disappeared. What kind of method is this? Damn it, he moved so quietly, we didn't even notice it. Suddenly, all 5 masters' expressions changed wildly. They were all fighting masters, and they knew in an instant that Jia Yan had subdimensional abilities, and the danger to them was much higher than before. So that's it? This is where his confidence lies. Just now I thought that this person's courage to show up alone to deal with us was commendable. He wanted to buy Suankan's subordinates time to escape. No, if we can't deal with his methods, wouldn't we be beaten unilaterally or even killed? Leave this mountain forest for now, the terrain is too convenient for him to do it. When several people were entangled with Jia Yan, they had been led into the jungle area by Jia Yan unknowingly. This terrain was the most favorable terrain for an assassin like Jia Yan to fight. They were extremely vigilant, and while focusing on taking care of the severely injured dark attribute bear, they retreated out of the jungle. We're all here, how about you guys continue chatting? Jia Yan laughed and appeared beside another master. The guru couldn't help but spray out large amounts of water mist all over his body. The clouds of water mist seemed to appear out of thin air, submerging the entire earth. In the virtual space, the heaven and earth were turned upside down, as if they were submerged by floods. In the subspace, Jia Yan only made a sound and did not actually show up. However, he shocked this guru-level master whose attributes were not revealed and exposed his base. In this way, it will be easier for Jia Yan to take action. Otherwise, without knowing its properties, Jia Yan would still have to worry about the mystery of Taoist means. Not anymore. How? The subspace cracked, and in the depths of the extremely chaotic subspace, Jia Yan's azure defense had already turned fiery red, and the thrusts from his feet also took on the attribute of fire. This is similar to the effect caused by his movement in the 13th subspace, but the difference is that this is not an attribute he carries, but an attribute ability temporarily given to him by the subspace. Fire? No. This is pure Wenbuletin. The water attribute master felt that his water vapor was directly turned into mist after being touched by the piercing feet. He no longer had any ability to hinder the enemy. Even the toxins transformed from the water vapor no longer had the slightest effect. The attributes conflict with each other. No wonder the fire attribute master just used extremely high temperatures on Jia Yan, unable to even burn his fur. Damn it! If Jia Yan could hear their voices, he would probably laugh. His so-called fire attribute is completely the ability to be forced out by subspace. In fact, he has no such ability at all. Do you want it? Come and try being burned by tens of millions of degrees for a long time, and immortality will come naturally. Oh no, you must have the evolved beast's own swallowing ability to create a blue defense, otherwise you may die. Anyway. Jia Yan didn't say anything and let the other party guess. Puff. Pyridine. The mist pierced the entire virtual space, and then dissipated like water mist and foam. The water attribute master raised his arms high and barely resisted Jia Yan's thrust. After all, he was also a master who had reached the lower level of the territory lord. With the hindrance of water mist, it was more than enough to withstand Jia Yan's attack. Do it quickly. He used his arms to block Jia Yan's feet, making it difficult for him to move forward. At the same time, The giant arm deliberately immobilized Jia Yan's feet, creating opportunities for those around him to attack. Hey, you are quite determined, but your physical fitness is far behind mine. Jia Yangjing pulled out the opponent's wound with force, pulling out his foot from the opponent's wound, bringing out a cloud of blood, and rushed back again, entering the subspace. Those attacks seemed to have been planned with Jia Yan, and they fell into the air slowly. Quickly leave, we won't be able to tangle with him. Several people immediately understood the disgust of the subspace talented person. You can't hit him. But he can jump out of the subspace and fight with you anytime and anywhere. If you can't seize the momentary opportunity to kill it, you will be slowly consumed by it. The 5 great masters became embarrassed and fled toward the outside of the jungle. It took them about half an hour to get out of the jungle, but no one was intact. Jia Yan was more or less able to seize the opportunity and leave some scars on their respective bodies. Your Excellency, Jia Yan, right? I've recorded what you did. See you next time. Just when one of the masters came out of the jungle and finally had time to use some kind of large-scale transfer ability. Jia Yan, however, appeared majestically in front of the 5 of them, with a blue circle of formations forming quickly between his feet. This ring thing suddenly hit the 5 masters who were about to move. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 3192. Careful. The 5 masters were impatient and ran away one after another, but the master who was using his ability was a beat too slow and was hit by the ring formation. The tyranny and terror of the power of the formation are undoubtedly revealed at this time. The earth lost its color. Compared with these 5 great masters, the combat techniques used are generally developed at the virtual level, like a dream-like illusion. Jia Yan's fighting skills are real and realistic abilities. The large area that exploded affected at least tens of thousands of square kilometers. Wind and grass were affected, and large areas of trees fell over. Puff. Before Jia Yan could see the power of the master who performed the power transfer, he was severely injured. Blood spurted from his mouth, and his whole body became sluggish. The remaining 4 people present looked a little frightened. This was the first time they encountered such an enemy. He is not affected by their siege, and can even circle around you like an assassin, seriously injuring you from time to time, but it is difficult for you to catch him. If he continues like this, he will definitely kill everyone one by one. This is an alien visitor who is not the strongest man in the dynasty, but is better than the strongest man in the dynasty. 5 friends, actually I really want to have a good talk. You see, the harmony is now broken. Jia Yan came out of the subspace and stood in front of the 5 masters, looking a little aggrieved, as if the opponent had caused the battle and he was just forced to fight back. Jia Yan, Your Excellency, in fact, we are just here to investigate the Imperial Dynasty incident. We have never thought of going against your Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. The giant bear creature was wounded and said in shock. This is true. They really want to maintain transactions with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, but if responsible persons such as Jia Yan are arrested, the price of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce and many related matters will be destined to be controlled by the dynasty. By then, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce will really become a force controlled by the dynasty. Who knows, they will also conduct research on Jia Yan, or let Jia Yan lead their army out to the galaxy. The whole situation will have huge consequences. Reverse. But talking about that now is meaningless. They failed to defeat Jia Yan, let alone arrest him. Instead, the 5 guru-level masters who came to arrest were easily beaten by Jia Yan with his unpredictable subspace ability. Became a drowned dog. Even the 5 powerful men cannot escape. If you tell me, no one will believe it. They were almost crying. I also want to do business seriously. Alas, it seems that I have some misunderstanding. How about we find a place to sit down and have a good talk? Jia Yan expressed his utmost sincerity. Although this group of experts were a little surprised, they still chose to believe in Jia Yan. Because it doesn't matter if you don't believe it. The initiative is in other people's hands. They can't even escape from Jia Yan's pursuit. So why not listen to what Jia Yan wants to say? What Jia Yan said was also very simple. That is to first define oneself, doing business, and resolutely not have anything to do with the events suspected by the dynasty. What you call rebels, underground world, barbarians in the far west, etc., maybe they just used the goods exported by our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, or, those overseas forces helped them. After all, we are the guests of the galaxy. They are just a group of beings from a different world that we are unfamiliar with. It's not that easy for us to cause trouble, right? Your Excellency Jia Yan is right. The five masters were also a little confused. That seems to be the case. People travel across the world to do business, just to make some business money. What's the point of doing things? So far, the kings of the dynasty don't know about the other world. At least the other world in this area will soon border the Milky Way region. So thinking is limited. Of course, the bigger reason is that Jia Yan convinces people with reason. I have no strength, I was caught just now, let me tell you the truth. Everyone, in fact, the misunderstanding between us is very simple. Isn't it just that we suspect that there is something wrong with our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce? How about this? The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, will go all out and sell you and other more supplies. Of course, this time we will only count you for equal prices. That's all. Once, how about not doing it next time? Parity. More. The eyes of several masters suddenly brightened. They were overjoyed not to be chased to death by Jia Yan. And the products from the Milky Way are definitely beneficial to their masters. Even if Jia Yan's so-called increase in the number of trade does not include things available at the guru level, they can still draw a lot of profits from it. It seems that some of you are interested. Of course there is. Brother Jia Yan is so generous. I doubted you before. I really have no face to face him. That doesn't have to be the case. I know that the lack of contact with your dynasty has led to misunderstandings between you and me. We just need to communicate more in the future. That's that. Jia Yan's strength is too great. Regardless of whether there is a master stronger than Jia Yan in the galaxy, he alone feels worthy of almost all the masters in the dynasty. It won't work if 5 of them come over, but with Jia Yan's fighting style, maybe 10 won't do. If you can't beat him, he can escape. If he escapes, he will come back and pester you until you die. However, what these experts don't know is that Jia Yan's subspace combat methods can only be carried out in specific areas of the inner world. Maybe it will be possible to cover the entire dynasty in a few hundred years, but if it doesn't work now, it won't work. He didn't plan to say anything either. Who exposed his shortcomings? Everyone is intrigued and deceitful, seemingly enjoying themselves, but they are full of temptations, as well as all kinds of secret language tricks and traps. In the end, even people like Jia Yan were a little exhausted. Compared with head-on confrontation, he is fearless, but compared with similar diplomatic rhetoric, he has lived too young and is really no match for these old guys. Besides, there were 5 mouths on the other side, and he couldn't fight them alone no matter what. Just follow the above regulations. Does this prove the friendship of our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce? Of course it's possible. I didn't expect that we wouldn't know each other until we started fighting. Brother Jia Yan is indeed a quick talker. Okay, let's leave more details to the people below to work out. I have something important to do, so I'll leave first. I won't send it. Jia Yan tore apart the subspace and left with the other party's full sincerity. As for the top 5 masters, their expressions instantly turned gloomy. What do you think? He is extremely powerful, but his temperament is not very good. No. It's not that this person has a bad character, but that he is too young. For Taoists like us who are thousands or even thousands of years old, he is probably only over 100 years old. Do you even think so, brother? That's definitely true. If the masters in the galaxy are so amazing and talented, and if more of them bring similar masters, wouldn't our dynasty be in danger? For a moment, the 5 masters were frightened. Even though they think Jia Yan has a bad character, no matter how bad his character is, it's not a sign of weakness, otherwise there wouldn't be the quarrel just now. Besides character, what matters more is hard power. In this regard, Jia Yan is stronger than them all. The addition of subspace skills is completely unreasonable. Forgetting the advantages in numbers and combat experience, Jia Yan only needs to use his assassination skills arrogantly to defeat the group of guru-level experts in front of him. Beheaded one by one under the horse. Therefore, it is a false proposition to have a good Xingxing. They can't promise Jia Yan something now but dare to renege on it in the future, right? The power is in other people's hands. If they go back on their word, they are seeking death. Forget it. I might as well comfort the Queen Mother and promise more preferential treatment to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. I agreed to it anyway. Wouldn't it be better if we could invite him to join our dynasty and become a powerful general in the dynasty? The 5 great masters looked around at him. As he spoke, he observed the surroundings and left the place where Xiancheng was located. There seemed to be some vague signs of fleeing. I was really frightened by Jia Yan's elusive style of play. Well, these masters are indeed old foxes. I'm afraid they will say bad things about me out of earshot of me, but my goal has been achieved. Jia Yan was still deep in the subspace, silently observing the group of guys walking away. He is no longer too worried about guru-level combat prowess. The means of fighting in subspace have become his ability to settle down in the other world better. Even if a local being whose strength far exceeds him comes, Jia Yan is confident that he can save his life. At this point, the second confrontation between the top players of the dynasty and the galaxy came to an end. In the 2 confrontations between top players, Jia Yan was the only one in the galaxy. But he showed the style of the galaxy and silenced the senior officials of the dynasty. I am afraid that for a long time in the future, they will restrain themselves when facing the members of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. But the supplies promised to them must still be given. This is called a blind eye. Jia Yanzhen promised to sell more and higher-end materials to the other party. Maybe even now, the 5 great masters are still confused. They don't know whether Jia Yan was involved in the rebellion and the matter in the far north. If he wanted to interfere in the affairs of the dynasty and overthrow the dynasty, he should not sell high-end materials to the dynasty. But Jia Yan did it and said it very readily. This also reduced the dynasty's fear of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. No matter how strong Jia Yan is, as long as the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce does business honestly, then they still have the possibility of peace. Outside subspace. In the Milky Way trading area, a giant mosquito flew out with its body covered in fiery red. The alarm has been lifted. Please follow me back. However, the entire dynasty is destined to have more precautions and surveillance on our forces recently. Please don't show your feet for the time being. Clear. In the trade area, a group of Galaxy Chamber of Commerce staff were waiting for their return. Unknowingly, the number of regular staff members of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce in the inner world has reached more than 1,000 people, and the vast majority of them are experts above the venerable level. For this area, it is quite a high-end strength. Master Jia Yan, I will go over and take a look this time. Suddenly the goddess appeared. Are you going to? Okay, then I'll make 2 trips today, otherwise I won't be able to take you with me on this first trip. As a senior domain master, the goddess lord is definitely more than 30 kilometers tall even if she is not as tall as Jia Yan. Jia Yan is already carrying a full space train, and he will definitely not be able to take her with him. Okay. Not long after, the goddess set foot on that magical land for the first time. Her beautiful eyes were filled with brilliance. Tell me, what are you doing by coming to this world? Jia Yan didn't believe it. As the highest god in the realm of gods, the goddess was willing to take risks. He also hinted that the goddess could come over to see their base in the other world, but everyone pretended not to hear. So there must be a purpose for coming here this time. Master Jia Yan, I have no choice but to come here this time, because I got a piece of information over there, which forced me to come here in person. What information? A few days ago, there was an old domain lord who was sent here by you. I'm afraid there's something wrong with his identity. Old territory lord. Jia Yan's expression moved, remembering the old domain lord whom he had sympathy for. I remember that the other party just stepped into this world and soon disappeared. Yes, the so-called family member of the old domain lord was also a top domain lord level expert in my trading area. However, things changed. A few days later, he came to me personally and said that he had been affected by the illusion a few days ago. He regards that old territory lord as his ancestor. I see. Jia Yan nodded hard. What's more, he even deceived himself. The old domain lord's strength was pretty good. But Jia Yan absolutely didn't believe it. If the other party used the illusion ability on him, he would succeed. Unless he is a great master of illusion who is above the lower level of territory lord, if he has reached Jia Yan's level and sees his nature clearly, there is no chance of confusing the master of illusion to that extent. I came here just to tell Lord Jia Yan this news. Secondly, I also want to see if it can be helpful. I have mastered an illusion factor of the other party, which can detect the other party's location. Do you still have this ability? Jia Yan looked at the goddess, but then realized it. The main goddess is the highest being in the realm of gods, and her strength is also unpredictable. Although it is impossible to compare with her, the path taken by the divine system is different from the training system of the powerful people in the universe. It is said that in addition to practicing the system of the powerful people in the universe, it is said that it has divine power, and if its own strength is sufficient, it can also create something similar to Jia Yan's previous created world, allowing a large number of believers to enter it. That is the kingdom of God. The gods who possess the kingdom of God have the endless power and skills of their people, and it is not impossible that some of them can track masters stronger than themselves. It seemed that he had underestimated the masters of the spirit realm. Jia Yan restrained his somewhat self-respecting mentality. There are still many heroes in the world. Buzz. The goddess is in a large mountain forest, with the elf-like ears on her head standing up. A holy aura spread in the mountain forest. She frowned from time to time, and opened her eyes from time to time to determine her location, and then gradually became extremely surprised. It is detected that your latest reading progress is Chapter 9 Home Come. Sync to the latest. Turn off sync. To provide you with the fastest update of Great God Buletinu's rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. In order that you can check the fastest update of this book next time, please be sure to save the bookmark. Chapter 14, Extremely Young. Come read for free. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletinu. Chapter 3193. The world here is too big, she said in shock. Of course, this mountain forest alone in the other world is hundreds of millions of kilometers long. If it can't be detected, forget it. That guy is not bad. Jia Yan also knew that what the goddess lord was afraid of was that the strength of the old domain lord was enough to threaten the safety of the galaxy chamber of commerce and even Jia Yan's safety. the existence that can even hide it from Jia Yan is most likely a lower level domain lord, and it may not be an ordinary lower level person. Such a master who knows the trade area thoroughly is still so elusive that it really makes people unable to calm down. At least lock the opponent's position. Find out your attitude towards asking questions, so that you can make relevant responses. I will try again. This time the goddess did not insist on her opinion, but nodded. This time, however, she quickly got a clue. In a place, very far away, this old domain lord appeared and attacked, a city. Oh my god, how can such a huge city exist in the world? Jia Yan pointed to a towering shadow not far from the forest and asked, is it as big as the city behind it? Only then did the goddess have time to look back, and then she looked shocked as if she had never seen the world before. Is this, the city that rules the world? It's so majestic, more majestic than what I saw. Jia Yan said helplessly, that's Xiancheng over there. In the other world, it's just a small city. Your Majesty, the goddess, can you not act like you've never seen the world? This is Xiancheng, The goddess paused and then became embarrassed. She knew Xiancheng very well even though she had never been there, because the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's main activity area was in Xiancheng, and she could see information about Xiancheng every day in her office in the trade area. But I never expected that when I saw Xiancheng in person, I realized that the things on the surface of the numbers were completely different from the actual effects. It's a bit embarrassing. The goddess looked at Jia Yan with a blushing face, covered up her embarrassment, and then said, the city that the old domain lord massacred was probably not big. It was at most 1/3 the size of Xian City, but there was an extremely strong the aura remains. I think the old territory lord should be a powerful person at the lower level of territory lord. Is it really the lower level of the domain lord? Pretty close. This time Jia Yan also became serious. The strength of the lower level territory lord is definitely not a small role, and the other party still knows the Milky Way thoroughly. God knows what the old territory lord who has disappeared now has his intentions. Let the goddess explore again, but she can't do anything. The distance was too far, and after the old territory lord wiped out a settlement that looked like a very small city, he deliberately hid his figure and used some kind of illusion ability to hide himself. Not to mention the goddess lord taking action. Even if the territory lord, it would be difficult for advanced exploration ability masters to continue to explore the opponent's traces at such a distance and time. That's all, then you can follow me back to Xiancheng to have a look. I just brought people back and it's the time when the 5 great masters are visiting. There must be changes in Xiancheng. You just go over to take a look at the situation. You may be able to help. The place. Also, the goddess also became very interested in the other world she visited for the first time. I've met Lord Jia Yan. Hey, Your Majesty. The goddess emperor had just been sent back by Jia Yan and found that the goddess lord had also followed, and she was somewhat surprised and came forward to greet her. The relationship between the two parties is actually very delicate. The goddess emperor is one of the several great god emperors second only to the goddess lord, and she is similar in appearance to the goddess lord. Many people in the divine realm are privately rumoring that the goddess emperor may take over the position of the goddess lord. After all, despite her beautiful appearance, the goddess is actually very old. This resulted in a somewhat awkward relationship between the two parties. No matter how generous the goddess was, she was still vaguely guarded against the goddess emperor in some aspects. Maybe she doesn't set foot in the other world, but she still has this kind of relationship in it. Your Majesty the God Emperor, I have some business to come to the other world. I won't disturb your work, right? The goddess smiled. No, no, please give me some guidance. The goddess emperor waved her hands in denial. The 3 of them chatted for a while and then continued to discuss the talent issue. That should be some master, right? Didn't Mr. Jia Yan feel his identity? The goddess emperor was trembling after hearing this. She thought that Jia Yan was the representative of the top combat power in the galaxy, but she didn't expect that there might be someone stronger. It's a matter of expertise, Jia Yan said ambiguously. From Jia Yan's point of view, the person who can hide it under his nose may indeed have extraordinary strength, but there is absolutely no way he can admit it. To admit it in front of your allies would be to lose your dignity. What's more, he is also not weak in the areas he is good at. I won't talk about the subspace, but I will just say that when I fought against the 5 masters before, I didn't show too many miraculous formation defense abilities. This is also an ability that cannot be measured by common sense. As long as Jia Yan is prepared and stacks the array defense in place, he will be immortal until he breaks through the array defense. The goddess was thoughtful. The strength between her and Jia Yan is not as far apart as that of the goddess emperor, and they can understand certain problems. So, don't I need to provoke this person? No, he has neither revealed his identity nor done anything detrimental to our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Even if he is unfriendly, he is not an enemy. There may be opportunities for cooperation in the future. That's good. The 3 of them turned to discuss other matters. Regarding the 5 masters coming together to attack, Jia Yan revealed a few words at this time, pretending to be mysterious. But the meaning expressed in these words shocked the goddess lord and goddess emperor. They had long heard from Jia Yan that the strength of a guru could reach the lower level of a domain lord in the Milky Way galaxy. And this, single-handedly, managed 5. No wonder, when he mentioned the old master just now, Jia Yan only said that he was good at different fields, but did not admit that he was weaker than the opponent. Samadhi among them is really worth pondering. In this case, we have to see the reaction of this so-called dynasty. The goddess made up her mind. Jia Yan's performance gave her, who had been a little flustered recently, some reassurance. My Majesty, won't you go back? I quite like the world here. I'll stay here for the time being and wait and see before leaving. This one even liked it. In fact, the reaction from the dynasty was greater than Jia Yan imagined. What? That strong man from the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, can resist the attack of 5 masters. In the court, it can be said that it is crowded today. The senior officials who got the news came. The appearance of a top master who is suspected to have reached that level of strength in the dynasty has far more profound significance in the dynasty than Jia Yan himself imagined. We don't know what the specific strength of that person is, but if we go all out, the 5 of us will still be able to compete, but it is really difficult to deal with him. The 5 masters faced everyone's disbelief, contempt, and some malicious looks, and it was difficult to say that they and others were defeated. Since there is a way to deal with it, it's a good thing that it shouldn't be at the level of our ancestors. The Queen Mother finally let out a long sigh of relief on her beautiful face that was both happy and angry. She misjudged Jia Yan's strength. But no matter how misjudgment he is, he still knows that there are masters who can defeat the combined efforts of the 5 great masters. In this way, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce defends itself and has not participated in several battlefields. Judging from its strength, it should be correct. Otherwise, there is no need to beat around the bush like this. The Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's products are against thieves, underground tribes, and the Far West. Maybe there is something wrong within our dynasty. The Queen Mother's eyes suddenly became sharp. The ministers sitting here felt chills all over their bodies. It seems that the Queen Mother is preparing to take action against the ministers. That makes sense. Because if there is no problem with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce materials in the hands of the major hostile forces can only be circulated from the hands of the high-ranking officials of the imperial dynasty, and it is impossible for the people to have so many. Check, give the AI family a thorough check to the end. No matter who it is, if they find out, they will ransack the house. The Queen Mother said angrily. This time she provoked the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, which was destined to be a big disaster in the future, so she hated the mastermind who made things turn like this. The entire high-ranking dynasty was in a state of panic for a while. Needless to say, a lot of problems were found. After all, in the dynasty, there are always bureaucrats who are corrupt to the core, and the relatives around the Queen Mother also took advantage of this opportunity to suppress dissidents, and eventually detonated a series of indictments. He recruited dozens of officials who were enough to go to the court, causing a complete change in the atmosphere of the entire dynasty. This is the consequence of the Queen's intervention in the court. It cannot be said that it is incompetent, but there are always countless interests involved, and coupled with the inherent shortcomings of female creatures in the overall situation, things will often lead to the worst outcome. So, our Galaxy Chamber of Commerce can continue to operate normally. On this day, Jia Yan received the fastest letter from the capital. The whole article is eloquent and contains a lot of investigation about the incident, as well as Dao Qian's most sincere attitude towards the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Senior Jia Yan can understand this. Secondly, on behalf of Xiancheng, I am very sorry that Suancan's hindsight in this incident has not been of any help to you and the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. The Lord of Xiancheng was sitting opposite Jia Yan. This time, the Lord of Xiancheng personally condescended to come to the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's store and talk to Jia Yan in person. It doesn't have to be like this. Our Chamber of Commerce has received a lot of care from the city lord in Xiancheng, so naturally we won't blame you. Instead of being aggressive, Jia Yan vaguely threatened him with words. Now that the other party knows his approximate strength, he can be more bold in the future. The only problem is that there is a huge gap between the strength of the vast majority of ordinary workers in the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce and ourselves. People are afraid of themselves, but they are not afraid of other staff members of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce. Once they take action, all the lower-level personnel will be killed, and it will be difficult for them to explain to the shareholders. Lord Jia Yan, we have buried the chess pieces even darker. Several staff members came to apologize. Last time, their information was leaked quickly, and the dynasty followed the clues and found a connection between the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce and several major hostile forces. Now it is no longer so direct, and it should be able to hide it deeper. It's not your fault. This is not the Milky Way. I am very satisfied with being able to do this in a different world. Several staff members were comforted by Jia Yan and left. And Jia Yan also quickly received a special signal of strength. His expression changed and he flew out of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's residence. A guy with a vague aura stood on the streets of Xiancheng, but many citizens and experts around him turned a blind eye and passed by him as if they hadn't seen him. Your Excellency is here again. Are you planning to come to trade? Jia Yan asked. This is the strongest person among the so-called visitors from overseas, and he is also extremely powerful. But this time, the other party's eyes were full of unexplained fear, and he nodded and said, "We have prepared the route and can start the first transaction, but, Your Excellency Jia Yan, I did not expect that you would actually make a move. To resist the 5 great masters is to underestimate the aliens from outside the world." Jia Yan realized that this man was shocked by his own strength. But even if he was shocked, he still dared to show up, which showed that his strength was definitely stronger than the 5 great masters. Okay, the goods will take a long time to prepare. If the price is agreed upon, let's start. Because the transaction was with an external force of the dynasty, it conflicted with the exclusive acquisition rights originally promised to the dynasty. Although after the incident of the 5 great masters, the dynasty did not dare to blatantly deal with the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, Jia Yan still regarded this matter as an excuse. The price was increased by more than 1 chip. And it's the price we agreed on last time. No problem, that's the price. The other party, on the other hand, readily agreed to Jia Yan's offer. The Dao heart is not too precious to the people of our mainland. If you want it, we will trade it with the Deo heart, which will save us the trouble of transporting other large quantities of materials. This guy simply wants to use Tau Xin to trade. You know, in the imperial dynasty, the Taoist heart was a special item for the royal family that was restricted by the state. However, the other party said that the Taoist heart was of low value, which shows how heroic it is. The Deo heart is fine, but I also need other supplies, such as those for practicing exercises. This is something that has been agreed upon a long time ago. Okay, I've prepared a lot of these. Jia Yan was somewhat satisfied with these so-called overseas visitors. Even after the master in front of me arrived, several more came with unknown strength, and I'm afraid they were not trivial, but they remained silent and just exchanged a few words with Jia Yan and watched the entire transaction process without saying anything about the conditions. These are the things we traded with you. Where are yours? Jia Yan led these guys to the warehouse protected by layers of defensive formations, and told them straightforwardly to follow and take a look. Aren't you afraid that we will snatch it directly? Someone who hadn't spoken for a long time suddenly asked. Jia Yan looked back at the other party, smiled and shook his head and said, I believe that you are not stupid enough to fall out with me just because of this thing. Then there will be no trading opportunities in the future. Moreover, Jia Yan had something to say that he never said aloud. To provide you with the fastest update of Great God Buletinu's rebirth of the starry sky giant Mosquito. In order that you can check the fastest update of this book next time, please be sure to save the bookmark. Chapter 15 is also free to read. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletinu. Chapter 3194. Besides, I think that even though you guys look quite strong, I don't think you will lose. Jia Yan couldn't bear to say anything, but his eyes revealed a similar mood, which made several guys following him frown. Their identities are indeed extraordinary. This time, I also heard about the transaction details in this area. After communicating with the staff or disciples of the respective forces behind me, I personally came to supervise the progress of the matter. To put it bluntly, they belong to different forces. Originally, they didn't want to go out together to put pressure on Jia Yan, but 2 days ago, they heard that this visitor from outside the world had defeated 5 masters from the dynasty alone, and they couldn't sit still. If we don't come together, we can't suppress this alien creature. But what they never expected was that even if they all arrived, this person would still be eager to try. Don't be impulsive. After all, no conflicts have broken out. It's just that each of them showed a little bit of thinking. Your Excellency Jia Yan, actually, the dynasty is too backward and too weak. If you want to come to our world to search for a plan to become stronger, you might as well go to the mainland. It is a place with vast land and abundant resources. There will definitely be it allows you to find opportunities for promotion, and of course, our transactions can also be more convenient. The transaction transitioned smoothly, and when it was about to be completed, one of them couldn't help but speak. If I have the chance, I will give it a try. After all, you have to eat one bite at a time, and things have to be done step by step. Why panic? My subspace cannot cover the mainland. This group of experts didn't say anything else. After all, it was meaningless. What they cared about was the transaction itself. A master from another world appears in the land of the dynasty, so what? They are just masters from the fringe forces of the continent. If they really want to find some masters and head towards the interior of the continent, there will definitely be so many masters that they will be ecstatic, but they are afraid that they will not be able to reach the hinterland. So they really don't care about such a being from another world. Anyway, if you don't go to the mainland, you can't have any conflict of interest with them. For a moment, this group of experts finished the transaction, just nodded, and led countless goods, which turned into air from under Jia Yan's eyes, gradually faded, and disappeared before his eyes. This power is really unpredictable. The goddess's voice sounded behind Jia Yan. She was always there, just pretending to be an ordinary manager and not talking to anyone across the street. Because the strength is not enough. All of them are masters who have reached the level equivalent to the lower level of territory lord. As a senior territory lord, she must have overstepped her bounds. The other party may not have thought that there is a superclass guru-level force from another world like Jia Yan. The truth is that except Jia Yan, there is no other guru-level master. The faults were also severe. The so-called Dao power is a certain mysterious force that is the most common in the world. In our galaxy, there are actually mysterious forces, but they are called cosmic forces by us. There is no strength or weakness between the two parties, it is just different forms of expression. You don't have too much respect for each other. Jia Yan shook his head non-committally. Of course, as a person who has done in-depth research on Taoist power, he can draw conclusions. This group of guys from overseas are definitely better than the so-called masters of the dynasty in terms of research progress and systematic cultivation of Taoist power. Especially the leading figure. He was able to make the dynasty with the truck card acquiesce in their qualifications to trade with Jia Yan, which shows that this guy himself, or the power group they represent, has the energy to threaten or even make the dynasty dare not do anything. Now we can make a rough assessment. Jia Yan saw the opponent for the second time and had the experience of fighting against the 5 great masters. He was finally able to roughly judge the strength of the dynasty's trump card master. To be honest, after a series of tentative moves, he felt that the only thing that made him slightly afraid in this large area was the so-called backhand of the dynasty. It is definitely not unreasonable for someone to be able to sit in power and suppress the dynasty for countless years. No matter how cautious Jia Yan is, it is never too much before he has discovered the bottom line of his opponent's strength. The guy just now expressed fear towards me, which shows that it will not be easy for him to face the 5 great masters, or that he may lose. And he can threaten the strongest person in the dynasty. But it is also possible that he is the strongest person in the dynasty and is intimidated by the forces behind him, but this person's strength must have reached a certain level to make the strongest person in the dynasty feel like this, right? So a rough assessment is Fan. His strength is definitely around 20 steps on the road to heaven. Very strong. It is stronger than the surface strength of Jia Yan's self-judgment. But not much stronger. Coupled with his subspace talent, the superposition of array power, the power of explosives, etc., Jia Yan believes that if a life and death battle breaks out, this person can be killed. If this kind of character could be considered a master in the so-called mainland, I wouldn't be far behind. The only problem is that subspace must permeate the past, otherwise it is all empty talk. Without the subspace, even with the superposition of formation defenses, he would be able to kill at most 1 or 2 20-step masters without the other party trying to escape. Then just bear with it. They have threatened our galaxy today. I will pay them back in the future. Jia Yan said that it was only for a little time and he could bear it. In fact, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce is almost at the level it is now. The interests that grew larger and larger because of their trouble snowballed. Even if he still has the ability to cause trouble, not only Jia Yan himself, but all the franchisees of the trade channel will not be willing to continue like this. Then wait. Wait until the situation takes a turn for the better. Jia Yan calmed down. At the same time, the entire trade channel became more orderly. For the dynasty, the precarious situation has not changed much. It is just that the anti-thief forces no longer suddenly appear powerful promoters, the underground tribes only stationed in the corner of the government and no longer launch attacks, and the barbarians in the far west, returned to the old place after beating the autumn wind. The situation in the entire dynasty has become more stable. Although the stubborn disease is there, as long as you get used to it, it will no longer be a problem. 1 year has passed, and 2 years have passed. 10 years have passed by. The Emperor of the Far North seems to have made up his mind not to exterminate the rebels, so he has been personally guarding the border. The capital of the imperial dynasty was controlled by the relatives of powerful ministers for 10 years, and there was a saying in the capital that long-term peace and stability can be maintained even without the emperor. On the Xiancheng side, the changes are even more dramatic. Because of the various things from extraterrestrials brought by the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce, Xiancheng has a variety of products related to the people for public sale subtly. Even though the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce's original intention was not like this, because of the advancement of technology, the items used by people in the Chamber of Commerce were often easily spotted by merchants, or officials from Xiancheng wanted to buy them. Gradually, various technological products began to circulate. It's a game console. It's a game console from Galaxy. It's a third-generation product. You can play the King of Fighters and you can play Donald Duck. Come and take a look. This is the original Little XX game in the Milky Way. Many well-known geishas from Xiancheng are included in it. Don't miss it if you pass by. No one expected that the most popular thing in Xiancheng was the game console. In the past 10 years, among a large number of cultural invasion products, game consoles have become popular items in Xiancheng. Even the city has a new look. The streets are a little more humane, with a dazzling array of advertising posters everywhere, and the ground is as clean as new. Many patrols and night patrol members who maintain order keep an eye on the city's appearance all day long. This is true for the entire Xiancheng, and the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce itself, which brought about these changes, has undergone earth-shaking changes. After Jia Yan defeated the 5 great masters with one hand, the imperial court seemed to recognize his strength. As long as Jia Yan doesn't order the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce to cause trouble, then what if Xiancheng is turned into a mess by his Galaxy Chamber of Commerce? The headquarters of the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has erected a huge building more than 50,000 kilometers high in recent years. There are special reception halls for guests of various heights. The high-tech products inside make the first-time guests of the dynasty feel like they have seen a different world. In fact, the Galaxy Chamber of Commerce has indeed become a high-end area. Qualifications are required to enter the lobby, let alone enter the depths to enjoy certain technological products and services. These are all things that money cannot buy. Ding! A wine glass several kilometers in size collided with a wine glass over 100 kilometers in size on the opposite side. The giant raised his head and drank the drink. After wiping the red liquid that flowed down, the giant instructor couldn't help but close his eyes and feel it for a moment, and burst into tears. I just found out today that there is such a fine wine in the world. The first half of my life was wasted. Jia Yan stretched out his mouthpart to suck up the drink. Master 11, in fact, the raw materials for this wine are all taken from the Imperial Mountain Forest, but the brewing process and formula are a little complicated. If you need it, you can buy it from our Chamber of Commerce in the future. I can make the decision and sell it to you at the lowest cost price. It's better not to. Your things are so expensive. I'm afraid I can't even afford them with my little income. The teacher laughed and shook his head. The two of them flirted with each other for a while, and the giant teacher moved his 10,000 kilometers body, looked at Jia Yan, and said something pointed. Your Excellency Jia Yan, it seems that, your body has grown somewhat over the years. This seems to be rare among the noble race. Opposite him, Jia Yan's body has indeed changed a lot from what it was 10 years ago. The body that was more than 50 kilometers long was now almost 60 kilometers long. Jia Yan looked down at himself, and then at the giant thousands of kilometers away who looked like a mountain around him, and couldn't help laughing. Master Tuangzai, there is something wrong with what you said. The height of your growth in the past 10 years is probably more than my height. You actually care about my little growth. It's different, it's different. We have been friends for more than 10 years. Tell me the truth, have you improved in strength? Giant teacher is Lei Shi's subordinate. Because of Master Lei's close partnership with Jia Yan, he often came to Xiancheng to handle affairs and often visited Jia Yan. It looks silly, but it's actually not like that. He is the person who knows the most about Jia Yan. In 10 years, there will always be some progress. Besides, my race is also the kind that grows taller as we get older. I see. The giant teacher obviously didn't believe it, but Jia Yan didn't want to say it, so he couldn't continue to ask. Send people away. The goddess master walked in from other offices. She still looks like she is more than 30 kilometers tall. Master Jia Yan, this lesson is a bit excessive today, and a lot of good wine has to be taken away. Let him get it. It's just local wine, and we don't lack it. Jia Yan shook his head speechlessly. Ever since she first arrived 10 years ago, the goddess has quietly fallen in love with the other world. She stays here for most of the year, claiming to be handling the affairs of the Chamber of Commerce, but in fact she uses this place as a place for adventure and rest. After all, in the galaxy, she is not only the lord of the divine domain that attracts everyone's attention, but also the strongest person in the alternative cultivation system who is hostile to the surrounding people. It's completely different when you come here. When you go out on the street, you're just treated like an ordinary visitor from outer space. If you don't notice, even the children just regard her as a small ordinary being. By the way, sir, has your strength improved over the years? Jia Yan paused. Then he laughed helplessly. The teacher's question is not an exception. Many people who have met Jia Yan recently think that he has made progress. No way. Jia Yan has indeed improved in strength. After all, it's been 10 years. Maybe for the goddess master, the giant teacher, and even countless powerful people above the domain master level, 10 years is just a short time. Because most of them are hundreds or even thousands of years old. As for Jia Yan, he is only over 100 years old. 10 years is equivalent to 1/10 of his cultivation time. If he does not make progress, then there will be a problem. Well, there is some progress, but it's not worth mentioning. Your Majesty, Goddess, you seem to have made a lot of progress as well. The goddess was a little elated. Yes, some of the materials in the world here are extremely valuable to us and other experts in cosmic cultivation. After using them or learning from them, I gained some insights. As far as the cultivation methods in the other world are concerned, the Goddess Lord's unique cultivation techniques can actually be regarded as the category of cosmic cultivation methods. That's good. And you can teach your skills to other masters in the spirit realm. Jia Yan smiled and exchanged several cultivation techniques with the goddess. Soon he flew out of the Chamber of Commerce's headquarters and entered the depths of the jungle. There is a secret settlement directly connected to the Milky Way, and it was also the place where the Chamber of Commerce warehouse once stood. However, after the last battle against the 5 great masters, the place was no longer so secretive, so Jia Yan adopted a simpler and more direct method, forcibly moving the warehouse to the increasingly stable subspace. Yes, Jia Yan's strength has improved too quickly in the past 10 years. His subdimensional ability has also gradually improved after countless in and outs. Every half a month, he would come to the subspace station and use his natural power to interfere with the deep-level space that was gradually becoming chaotic and calm the chaos until the second half of the month. I celebrated the Mid-Autumn Festival with my family yesterday. Belated Mid-Autumn Festival. Congratulations, Happy Mid-Autumn Festival.